Story 1. I gifted my stepdaughter a house as her pre-wedding gift, and she uninvited me so that her real dad could come. So I told her that I won't be paying anything now. I, 62M, am facing a difficult situation with my stepdaughter. I've been married to her mother, Sarah, for 15 years. My first wife, Emily, passed away from cancer when I was 45. Emily and I were high school sweethearts, married for 25 wonderful years. We never had children due to Emily's health issues. After Emily's death, I was devastated. I threw myself into my work as a real estate developer. 3 years later, I met Sarah at a charity gala. She was vibrant, kind, and had a 10-year-old daughter named Lily. We hit it off immediately, and I was drawn to both of them. Sarah had been struggling as a single mother. Lily's biological father, Tom, had left when Lily was 2. He'd occasionally pop in and out of their lives but never provided real support. I saw an opportunity to find love again and be the father figure Lily needed. Over the years, Lily and I grew close. I helped with her homework, attended her school events, and was there for every milestone. I paid for her college education, wanting her to have every opportunity in life. Now, at 25, Lily is engaged to a wonderful young man named Mike. To show my support and love, I decided to gift them a house as a pre-wedding present. It's a beautiful property in a nice neighborhood, perfect for starting their new life. However, when the wedding invitations were sent out, I was shocked and deeply hurt to discover that I wasn't invited. At first, I thought it must be a mistake. Surely, after all these years, Lily wouldn't exclude me from her special day. I'm at a loss. I've always treated Lily as my own daughter, and I thought she saw me as a father. Now I'm wondering if I should take back the house I gifted them. It's not about the money. I'm fortunate enough that the financial aspect isn't an issue. It's the principle of the matter. I feel betrayed and unappreciated. Am I overreacting? Should I confront Lily about this? Or should I just accept her decision and move on, even if it means taking back my gift? I remember the day I first met Lily. She was shy and hesitant, hiding behind Sarah's legs. But over time, she opened up to me. I recall teaching her how to ride a bike, the pride in her eyes when she finally balanced without training wheels. I was there for her first day of high school, comforting her when she was nervous about fitting in. When she had her first heartbreak at 16, I was the one who sat with her, offering ice cream and a shoulder to cry on. We had our traditions too. Every Sunday we'd have a family game night. Lily always insisted on being the banker in Monopoly, and we'd laugh at how seriously she took the role. On her 18th birthday, I surprised her with a car, nothing fancy, but reliable. The look of pure joy on her face when I handed her the keys is a memory I'll always cherish. When Lily got accepted to college, we celebrated as a family. I remember how she hugged me tightly, whispering, "Thank you, Dad," in my ear. It was the first time she had called me Dad, and it meant the world to me. All these memories make the current situation even more painful. How could she forget all we've been through together? The thought of not being there on her wedding day, not walking her down the aisle, not having that father-daughter dance. It's heartbreaking. I've always believed that family is more than just blood. It's about love, support, and being there for each other through thick and thin. I thought Lily felt the same way. Now I'm questioning everything. Part of me wants to confront her immediately, to demand an explanation, but another part is afraid of what I might hear. What if she says she never really saw me as a father? What if this is her way of telling me I'm not family? I've talked to Sarah about it, but she seems hesitant to get involved. She says I should talk to Lily directly, but how can I when Lily won't even answer my calls? The house I gifted them was meant to be a symbol of my love and support for their new life together. Now it feels like a painful reminder of my exclusion from that life. Taking it back feels petty, but leaving it feels like I'm accepting her decision to cut me out. I never thought I'd be in this position when I married Sarah and became a part of Lily's life. I committed fully to being a father figure. I've loved her as my own for 15 years. To have that seemingly dismissed so easily is crushing. Am I wrong if I decide to take back the house? Is it wrong to want recognition for the role I've played in her life? Should I just step back and let her have the wedding she wants, even if it means I'm not a part of it? I'm torn and could use some outside perspective. Update. It's been a week since my last post, and I wanted to provide an update on the situation. Thank you all for your advice and support. It's been a challenging time, and your input has been invaluable. After much consideration, I decided to confront Lily about her decision to uninvite me from the wedding. However, this proved to be more difficult than I anticipated. Lily seemed to be avoiding me. She wouldn't answer my calls or respond to my messages. It was as if she had suddenly become a stranger. Frustrated and hurt, I turned to my wife, Sarah, for answers. What she told me left me speechless. Apparently, Lily wants to invite her biological father, Tom, to the wedding, the same man who abandoned her and Sarah when Lily was just a toddler. Sarah explained that Lily had been in contact with Tom for about a year now. He suddenly reappeared in her life, claiming he had changed and wanted to make amends. According to Sarah, Tom expressed a desire to be part of Lily's life again and to walk her down the aisle at her wedding. I was stunned. For years, Tom had been nothing but a disappointment to Lily. I remember the nights I spent consoling her after he'd break yet another promise to visit. I was there for her first heartbreak, her high school graduation, her college acceptance. All the moments Tom chose to miss. Tom's history as a father is far from stellar. He never paid child support, rarely showed up for birthdays or holidays, and seemed more interested in his own life than in being a parent. I can't help but wonder what his sudden change of heart is all about. The revelation that Lily had been in secret contact with Tom for a year hurt almost as much as being uninvited to the wedding. I thought Lily and I had a close relationship, one where she could come to me with anything. Finding out she had been hiding this from me for so long felt like a betrayal. I'm trying to understand Lily's perspective. I know the desire to have a relationship with one's biological parent can be strong, but after everything we've been through together, after all the love and support I've given her, how can she just cast me aside? I remember one particular incident when Lily was 14. Tom had promised to take her to a father-daughter dance at her school. Lily was so excited. She spent weeks picking out the perfect dress. On the day of the dance, Tom didn't show up, no call, no explanation. I found Lily crying in her room, still in her dress. Without hesitation, I put on a suit, and we went to the dance together. We had a wonderful time, and Lily seemed to forget all about Tom's absence that night. As I tucked her into bed, she hugged me tightly and said, "You're the best dad ever." How could she forget moments like these? There was also the time when Lily needed braces. Tom had promised to pay for them, but when the time came, he was nowhere to be found. I stepped in without a second thought, ensuring Lily got the dental care she needed. For 2 years, I drove her to every orthodontist appointment, bought her ice cream after particularly uncomfortable adjustments, and celebrated with her when the braces finally came off. These memories make the current situation even more painful. How can Lily choose Tom over me after everything we've been through? I've been there for every important moment in her life, while Tom has been nothing but a series of broken promises. I've decided I need to speak with Lily directly. I can't let this situation continue without addressing it head-on. I've sent her a message asking to meet, making it clear that if she doesn't agree, I'll be forced to make some tough decisions regarding my involvement in her life and the wedding gift. I'm hoping she'll agree to meet. I need to understand her reasoning and express how deeply her actions have hurt me. Am I wrong for wanting this confrontation? Should I just step back and let her have the wedding she wants, even if it means I'm not a part of it? As I wait for Lily's response, I find myself reflecting on our relationship. I remember teaching her to drive, spending hours in parking lots as she learned to navigate my old sedan. I think about the nights we spent working on her college applications, the pride I felt when she got accepted to her dream school. I recall the day she moved into her dorm, how she hugged me goodbye with tears in her eyes, whispering, "I'm going to miss you, Dad." These memories make her current actions all the more bewildering. How can she so easily dismiss years of love and support? Is the pull of biology really that strong, or have I somehow failed her as a father figure without realizing it? I'm also grappling with my feelings toward Tom. Part of me is angry at him for swooping in now, after years of absence, and disrupting our family dynamic. Another part of me is worried for Lily. What if he disappoints her again? Will I be expected to pick up the pieces once more? As I prepare for the possibility of confronting Lily, I'm a mix of emotions. I'm hurt, angry, and confused, but underneath it all, I still love her deeply. I want what's best for her, but I also need to protect myself emotionally. I'll update again after I've spoken with Lily. Thank you all for your continued support during this difficult time. Update 2. Hello everyone. I'm back with another update on the situation with my stepdaughter, Lily. A lot has happened since my last post, and I'm still processing everything. Lily finally agreed to meet with me after my ultimatum. We met at a local coffee shop, neutral ground for what I knew would be a difficult conversation. As soon as we sat down, I could see the guilt in her eyes, but there was also a defiance that I'd never seen before. I started by expressing how hurt I was by her decision to exclude me from the wedding. I reminded her of all the years we'd spent together, all the moments I'd been there for her when Tom wasn't. I told her, Lily, I've been there for you since you were 10 years old. I helped you with your homework, taught you to drive, and supported you through college. I've treated you like my own daughter. How can you push me aside now? Lily's response shocked me. She said, I know you've done a lot for me, and I'm grateful, but Tom is my real father. He wants to make things right, and I want to give him that chance. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I asked her, and what about all the times he let you down? All the birthdays he missed? The child support he never paid? Does none of that matter? She replied, people can change. He's different now. He wants to be part of my life. I felt my anger rising. I reminded her that it was I who had supported her education, who had been there for every important moment in her life, and now that she was capable and settling into her life, she wanted to invite the man who had abandoned her to walk her down the aisle. Lily then dropped another bombshell. She said, Tom has promised to contribute to the wedding expenses. He wants to take responsibility. That was the last straw for me. I told her, fine. If Tom wants to be your father now, let him take on all the responsibilities that come with it. I won't be paying for anything related to this wedding, and the house I gifted you. Consider that off the table as well. Lily's face fell. I could see she hadn't expected this reaction. She tried to backpedal, saying she still wanted me in her life, just not at the wedding. But for me, the damage was already done. I stood up to leave, but before I did, I told her, Lily, I've always considered you my daughter. I thought you felt the same way about me being your father. I guess I was wrong. I hope Tom lives up to your expectations this time. With that, I left the coffee shop. The drive home was a blur. When I got home, I told Sarah what had happened. She was upset but said she understood Lily's desire to have her biological father in her life. However, she agreed that Lily's actions were hurtful and unfair. I've since contacted my lawyer to start the process of taking back the house. It's not about the money. It's about the principle. I can't, in good conscience, gift such a significant asset to someone who doesn't see me as family. As I reflect on our conversation, I'm struck by how much Lily has changed. The defiant young woman in the coffee shop seems so different from the little girl who used to run to me for comfort after a nightmare, or the teenager who proudly showed me her first A+ on a difficult math test. I remember the day Lily graduated high school. As she walked across the stage to receive her diploma, she looked out into the audience and gave me a big smile and a thumbs up. Later, at her graduation party, she hugged me tightly and said, I couldn't have done this without you, Dad. Where is that Lily now? I also can't help but think about all the times Tom has let Lily down in the past. There was the time he promised to take her on a camping trip for her 13th birthday, only to cancel at the last minute. I ended up taking her instead, teaching her how to set up a tent and roast marshmallows over a campfire. Or the time he said he'd help her move into her college dorm but never showed up. I was there, carrying boxes and helping her decorate her new room. Now Tom swoops in with promises of change and financial support, and suddenly he's the father she wants by her side. It feels like a slap in the face after years of being there for her through thick and thin. Part of me wonders if I'm being too harsh. Should I be more understanding of Lily's desire to have a relationship with her biological father? But then I remember the hurt in Sarah's eyes when Tom abandoned them years ago, and how hard we've worked to build a loving family unit. Feels like Lily is throwing all of that away on a whim. I know some might think I'm being petty or overreacting by taking back the house and withdrawing financial support for the wedding, but from my perspective, Lily has made her choice. She's chosen Tom over me, despite all our history together. It hurts, but I need to protect myself emotionally and financially. Should I have been more understanding of Lily's desire to reconnect with her biological father? I'm still conflicted, but I feel I need to stand my ground. I'll update again if there are any significant developments. Thank you all for your support and advice during this difficult time. Update 3. Hello everyone. It's been 6 months since my last update, and I wanted to share what's happened since then. A lot has changed, and I'm still coming to terms with everything. After the confrontation with Lily, I went through with my decision to take back the house and withdraw my financial support for the wedding. It was a difficult time. Sarah was torn between supporting her daughter and understanding my hurt. Our relationship became strained, and eventually, Sarah decided to move out temporarily to be with Lily during the wedding preparations. The wedding went ahead as planned, with Tom walking Lily down the aisle. I wasn't there, of course, but I heard about it from mutual friends. They told me it was a beautiful ceremony, but there was an undercurrent of tension that everyone could feel. For a while, I heard nothing from Lily or Sarah. I threw myself into my work, trying to distract myself from the pain of losing my family. I won't lie, it was a lonely and difficult time. Then, about a week ago, I received a call from Sarah. Her voice was shaky, and I could tell she had been crying. She said, "We made a terrible mistake. We're so sorry." Sarah went on to explain what had happened after the wedding. Tom had stuck around for about a month, playing the role of the doting father. He did contribute some money to the wedding expenses as he had promised, but as the bills started piling up and the reality of ongoing financial responsibility set in, Tom began to distance himself. Within 2 months of the wedding, Tom had disappeared again, just as he had done years ago. He stopped answering calls, avoided Lily and Sarah, and essentially vanished from their lives once more. Lily was devastated. She had truly believed that Tom had changed, that he wanted to be a part of her life. The realization that he had let her down again, especially after she had sacrificed so much to include him, was crushing. Sarah told me that Lily had been too ashamed to contact me herself. She felt guilty for how she had treated me and was afraid that I wouldn't want to hear from her. Sarah said, "She realizes now what a mistake she made. She misses you so much." I listened to Sarah's words, feeling a mix of emotions. Part of me felt vindicated. I'd been right about Tom all along. But a larger part of me just felt sad. Sad for Lily, who had been let down once again by her biological father. Sad for the pain this had caused our family. I told Sarah, "I appreciate you telling me this, but the damage has been done. I can't just pretend the last 6 months didn't happen." Sarah pleaded with me to reconsider, to give Lily another chance, but I stood firm. I said, "I'm not saying I'll never forgive Lily, but right now I need time. She made her choice, and now we all have to live with the consequences." We ended the call on a somber note. I told Sarah she was welcome to come home whenever she felt ready, but I needed more time before I could consider rebuilding a relationship with Lily. As I sit here writing this final update, I'm still processing everything that's happened. Part of me wants to reach out to Lily, to comfort her and tell her everything will be okay. But another part of me is still hurt and angry. I know some of you might think I'm being too harsh, that I should forgive and forget, but trust is a fragile thing, and once broken, it's not easily repaired. I need time to heal, to figure out if and how I can move forward from this. For now, I'm focusing on myself. I'm seeing a therapist to work through my feelings, and I'm trying to rebuild my life without Lily in it. It's not easy, but I believe it's necessary. Thank you all for your support throughout this journey. Your advice and perspectives have been invaluable. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm trying to face it with strength and dignity. Now on to the next story. Story 2. Before we start, if you're enjoying this video so far, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Now let's continue. Parents took out a third mortgage to fund my golden child sister's failed business, and now want me to quit college to save them from debt. Hi everyone, it's really late at night right now, so please ignore any mistakes that I make, or if I start ranting, because I'm in a messed up situation right now. I, 19F, have an older sister, 23F, and she's the golden child for my parents. Full disclosure, I don't think my parents even wanted to have me, and have always made it a point to make me feel ignored and unwanted. I was always the less important kid, and they would discourage me from doing anything that would steal the limelight for my sister. My sister herself is pretty damn ordinary. I'm going to be blunt and say that she's just not as good as me in any way whatsoever. Yet, she's the one who my parents have always hyped up and supported. I was always better than her in academics, in sports, and just outdid her in every area. I think part of it was because I'm really competitive, since I wanted the attention and affection that my parents showered my sister with, and kept trying to outdo her at everything so that they'd love me. But that only made them dislike me more, and they'd call me an attention seeker. I think by the time I reached high school, I knew that nothing that I did would make them like me more than my sister, and I gave up trying to impress them. I didn't stop outperforming my sister, though. I was still scoring well and taking part in sports and stuff, but now the only difference was that I was doing it for myself and my future, and not for my parents. I'd say my sister was also jealous of me and enjoyed the attention that my parents gave her, so naturally she couldn't stand it when she realized that only our parents would play favorites and pick her, but everyone apart from them could see clearly who the better sibling was. I'd put in my best efforts to make her my friend, but she was always too full of herself to even consider being nice to me. So by the time it was time for me to go to college, I wasn't on good terms with anyone from my family, and I think we were all really relieved to get rid of each other. I started college 2 years ago, and I'm a business major because I've always fancied myself an entrepreneur. I don't have to pay the full tuition either because I got a scholarship, and whatever amount I do have to pay is covered by my best friend's dad. My best friend is well aware of my family situation and also knows that they would never give me any money if it meant that I would stand the chance to do better in life than my sister. So her dad stepped up and paid for my spot so that I wouldn't have to ask my parents for money, and neither would I have to get a student loan. And 60% of my tuition has been waived off because of the scholarship anyway, so it's not a lot of money that he has to spend, but I'm still really grateful to him. I obviously do plan on returning the money to him eventually when I have the means to, but for now he's the one who's handling my education as well as his own daughters. They're really rich too, unlike my own family, so it's not a problem for them, and I'm really lucky that they're so generous, unlike my parents. My parents think I'm studying here for free because I told them that 100% of my tuition would be waived off, and they were greatly relieved because they wouldn't have to spend a single dime on my education and could continue spoiling their eldest daughter. I'm also working a part-time job as a tutor to cover other expenses, and I get by somehow. I have to live frugally, but since my accommodation and food are taken care of by the college since I live on campus, I don't have much to worry about. My family is not very financially stable, and my parents have already had to mortgage all their jewelry and my grandpa's house 4 years ago to be able to fund their textile business. And while it helped a little, they're still not doing as well as they'd like to. They don't let me have a say or advise them either, so I can't help them. I used to be really paranoid about their debts until I read somewhere that since I'm not a cosigner on their debts, I'm not going to inherit them either, and since then I've stopped caring because they don't want my help, but I don't want to waste my time helping people who don't respect me or my business acumen. Yesterday, however, I received a call from my parents in the afternoon where they told me that my sister was in trouble, and so were they, and they needed my help to bail them out of this. Apparently, my parents had mortgaged the house they currently resided in almost a year ago to fund my sister's bakery. My sister had no idea how to run a business since she'd never gone to college, and neither was she good at baking either, so I don't know why any of them thought it was a good idea. They'd never told me about the loan, and I wasn't interested in where they got the money from to help her start her business, so I never found out about the mortgage until they told me themselves. Now they demanded that I come back and help them handle all their accounts and run their business because my sister had to shut hers down since it wasn't making any money. They wanted me to start working full-time so that I could contribute to the family and bail them out, as well as join the family business to manage it. They actually expected me to quit college so that I could do all of this and said to me in a very matter-of-fact voice, as if this was a normal demand to make. When I asked them why exactly would I quit college for their sake, they told me that as a member of this family, I owed it to them. Since I wouldn't be able to go to college, run the family business, and work a second job all at once, I had to quit one thing, and they thought college was the most obvious option since it required me to stay away from home anyway and would be one less obstacle in my way. I was actually speechless that they were saying all that so casually, as if they weren't just asking me to sacrifice my future because they were stupid and had no idea how to manage their money. I lost it while my dad was telling me that my sister needed my help, and if I didn't want to lose my home, then I needed to come back right away and get to work. The sheer audacity of that got under my skin, and I ended up telling him that I didn't know them, and that what happened to him or my mom or my sister was none of my business because I didn't think of them as my family at all. They'd never treated me like their own and had always made me feel bad about myself, and now when they needed my help they wanted to play happy family all of a sudden. When my dad argued, saying that even if I didn't want to come back for the sake of my family, I could at least come back for the sake of the place I'd called home for the past 20 years. But that place was never my home. It was nothing more than a house for me, and that's what I told him before disconnecting the call and blocking my family everywhere. I'd still even bother to keep in touch with them because I'd hoped that someday they'd change, but it was as clear as day to me now that that day would never come, and I was sick of waiting for them to be decent people. I was in a horrible mood the entire day and didn't attend any classes, and neither did I speak to anyone because I was, and still am, feeling a lot of things all at once. I feel really angry that my parents not only wanted but even expected me to give up my future and my dreams just because my sister had messed up big time, and so had they, honestly. But I also feel so weirdly guilty for turning my back on them, knowing that I'm fully capable of helping them. I don't know where this guilt is even coming from, and I don't know what to do about this either. It's been a day, and I thought I'd feel better eventually, but I still feel like crap. The last time I saw my family was last Christmas, and we had a decent time. I didn't enjoy myself, but they weren't picking on me, and my sister was civil to me as well. But now I think it was all an act because they knew that they'd need my help at some point. I just feel so weird and horrible. I haven't spoken to anyone about this, not even my best friend, because I don't even know where to start. I guess the reason I'm here is because I really could do with some reassurance that I'm not in the wrong here, so I'd appreciate it for abandoning my family when they needed my help after they mistreated me my entire life. Update 1. Hi everyone. I don't know where exactly to begin, but I really just want to thank everyone who validated my feelings and reassured me that I wasn't being selfish here. I've been thinking about this a lot, and I don't know why my parents would even think that I would do what they asked of me after all that they put me through. And I can't believe that I skipped one whole day of classes just because of this bullcrap. I guess that's the part that I regret the most right now, lol. It's been 3 days since then, and I haven't heard from them yet. I don't know what they're up to, and I don't care either as long as they don't bother me again. I have a lot to worry about already, and I don't need more of it. I told my best friend about what my parents told me, and she's honestly so sweet that she offered to help me out instantly, but I told her that I was all right and had nothing to worry about. The only thing I wanted from her was emotional support and some reassurance that everything would be all right, because honestly, my mental health had just gone for a toss after that day. It's not my family that I'm worried about, but it's myself. I probably won't have a home to go back to once I'm out of college, and even though I know my friends would be willing to help me out, I don't think I want to constantly have to rely on my friends. I have to work twice as hard now to make sure that I graduate top of my class and land a well-paying job as soon as I'm out of college because I really can't afford to slack off right now. I've been driving myself nuts with anxiety about the future, and I can't get myself to stop even though I know I can't really control what's going to happen, and all I can do is give my best. I just wish my family wasn't awful like this. Update 2. So my family showed up at college today, and I was shocked that they'd even had the audacity to turn up here after what they'd done. They said that they wanted to take me out for lunch and discuss certain things with me. We were in the lobby, and I didn't want to have a dramatic showdown in front of all my friends, so I agreed to go with them just so that they'd leave me alone. I didn't trust them, though, so I said that I'd choose the place, and I picked a diner that I usually went to whenever I felt like having something other than the food from the cafeteria. The owners knew me really well, so I knew that I could count on them to help me out if my family tried anything funny. When I went there, I did see the man who owned the restaurant also working at the counter, so I knew I was safe, and I even waved at him to let him know I was there. Once we were sitting, they told me to order some food, but I refused because I just didn't feel like eating with them, and I'd rather go hungry. But they insisted, so I ordered a lemonade but no food. They ordered full meals for themselves, and while we waited for the food to come, they got to the purpose of their little visit and told me that they were there to talk about the financial crisis they were facing, which I already knew. Once again, they told me to reconsider what they'd asked me earlier, and once again I had to tell them that I wasn't quitting college to help them with all their loans because they hadn't consulted me or included me in the discussions before making those decisions, so now it wasn't my responsibility anymore. My sister got agitated and started accusing me of being jealous of her, which is why I was refusing to help them out, which was laughable since she literally had nothing that could make me feel jealous. She was the one who'd always been insecure because of me, and not the other way around. Speaking of, a lot of you said that I sounded bitter and resentful while talking about my sister in the first post, and I just want to touch on it before I continue. So yes, I most certainly did sound that way, and it's because I am bitter and resentful. She was always favored over me, even though she never did anything to deserve the preferential treatment, and I was always pushed aside because of her. I think anyone else in my place would have felt the same way. But anyway, my mother managed to shush my sister, and then came the emotional blackmail. My parents started talking about how the only reason I was even able to go to college was because they educated me and made sure that I had everything I needed to cinch a spot in a good college once it was time. That was the bare minimum that they could have done for a child that they chose to bring into the world. And let's not forget that what they were saying was required by the law, so it's not as if they were doing me a favor. I told them that I wasn't doing anything for them and that was my final decision, so they might as well go back home and leave me alone. I told them that if they came back here then I'd report them to security and the cops as well. My dad got really mad and almost looked like he was going to yell at me right there, but my mom stopped him and gave me a nasty and disgusted look before saying that they were ashamed of me and that I was nothing but a disappointment to them. Then they left without even waiting for the food they'd ordered, and of course they didn't even pay for it. When I asked them about it, my sister was the only one who looked back and said that I could pay for it since this place was my choice anyway, and then walked out smiling smugly. I was really upset, and even though I tried my very best to hold it together for these past few days, I just couldn't anymore. My parents and sister were just the worst, and it was clear now that they would leave no stone unturned to make me feel like crap about myself. I was devastated, and I hate to admit it, but my mom's words really stung. They'd called me a disappointment just because I refused to be trampled over by them. I tried to push down my feelings, but I couldn't anymore, and after they left I broke down in the diner itself. And it wasn't even silent tears but a full-blown breakdown. It was really embarrassing, but I just couldn't stop myself, and the tears just kept coming while I hiccuped, and in a few seconds everyone there was looking at me. I tried to get up and leave, but the owner's wife, who also knew me, came by my booth, grabbed my arm, and led me behind the counter, and I let her because I just didn't know what else to do. She and her husband sat with me, consoled me, and made sure that I stopped crying. They let the other waiters take charge, and I was so grateful that they were being so helpful even though I was having a breakdown in their diner and disturbing all their other guests. When they asked me what was wrong, I tried to explain, but I could barely even speak because I was so overwhelmed, and so I just told them the short version. That my parents and I had a fight and they left without paying. They must have known that there was more to it but didn't push, seeing how I was in a really bad space. Then the owner told me that they could pack all the food that they prepared, and I didn't need to pay for it either. Of course, I'm going to pay them back because it was a crapload of food, but I'm really thankful that they didn't bother me about it and even called a cab for me to send me back to college and paid for that out of their own pockets. It's really because of the kindness and warmth that other people in my life have shown me that I haven't completely lost my mind yet. Once I got back to my dorm room, I called my best friend and asked her if she could put me in touch with a lawyer as soon as possible and explained what had happened today. I was afraid that if my parents were willing to come all the way to my college just to harass me, then there really was no telling what other shenanigans they might get up to now since I'd already refused to help them. They had nothing to lose now and would probably try even harder to bother me and get under my skin. I had to do something to prevent that from happening, and so I got my best friend involved. When I told her what had happened today, she told me that she'd visit me with her father and their family lawyer as soon as they could, and that I didn't need to worry about anything. So I feel like I can finally relax a little because I know she'll help me out. I feel immensely guilty for bothering her and her dad so often, but I have nowhere else to go and nobody else to look to. At least I'm fortunate enough to have found such a great friend with an equally amazing father who's more than willing to step up and do what my own father never would have. I really can't wait to see them tomorrow because my best friend's presence is enough to calm me down. She's been my friend since kindergarten and knows me better than anyone and is aware of how much I struggle with anxiety, so she always tries to keep me relaxed. She's like my own personal anxiety pill, and I love her the most. Her dad is just like her and is literally the best example of what a father should be like. I'd say that they're more like family to me than my own parents and sister have ever been. In fact, even the couple who own the diner are kinder, and they've just known me for a year. I hate my family, and I really wish I hadn't been born in their house at this point. I won't even call them greedy or mean, but just plain cruel because they really don't care about what they put others through as long as they're good. I really wish that they suffer more, honestly, because now it's just their bad karma that's finally getting to them. I wish nothing but the worst for them, especially after what they did to me today. Today was just unforgivable. Update 3. I've been kind of busy with work and a lot of other things, so I haven't been active here. But again, thank you guys so much for your kind words. I'm doing a lot better now, and I've also started therapy to deal with my emotions because I realized that the things that were happening to me weren't normal, and just because I'd been facing these things all my life didn't make it all fine all of a sudden. I'd also been stressed about my future, and I felt like I'd fall really sick if this continued. So my best friend and her dad made me start therapy, which I'm grateful for. They also put me in touch with their lawyer when they visited me around 3 weeks back, and were filing a restraining order against them in a few days. The plan is to get myself legally estranged from them altogether in the long run. 3 weeks back, when my best friend and her dad visited me a day after my parents dropped by, I was a total mess and an emotional wreck to say the least, but their presence really helped me. Her dad reassured me that I had nothing to worry about as long as I had them by her side, and even said that I was as good as his own daughter now. My best friend doesn't have a mother since she'd passed away a few months after my friend was born, but they told me that if she was ever to have a sister, I'd be the kind of person they'd expect her to be. That touched me and alleviated a lot of the guilt that I'd been feeling. They reassured me that I wasn't a burden on them, never had been, and they were more than happy to stand by me. I spoke to their lawyer, and the next day, unfortunately, her dad and the lawyer had to go back to work, but my best friend stayed with me for a few days and we had a ton of fun. She made everything easier, and for a few days I was able to forget everything about my family. She was also the one who forced me to look for therapists near me and even made me book my first session. I've been attending 2 sessions every week since then, and I'm still a long way from being completely fine, but this is a start. My family hasn't tried to get in touch with me since the last time, but just to be on the safe side, we're still filing for a restraining order because I really don't trust them and neither do I feel safe around them. All I can say right now is that I'm really grateful for all that I do have, and I hope things get better here onwards. Now on to the next story. Story 3. Dad married a new woman, neglected me, spoiled his new family, and made me feel like a guest in his own house, causing me to resent him when I was younger. I had a very good relationship with my dad. My parents divorced when I was an infant, but I spent weekdays with my mom and weekends with my dad. My dad and I were like best friends, and we had a simple routine every weekend where we'd get 5 Redbox movies to finish during the weekend. We'd go fishing, we'd play soccer, and we'd bike to this little secret playground near the zoo. Something else I was used to was my dad always having new girlfriends that never lasted more than 2 weeks. The only one who lasted longer, a woman I really liked who lasted 2 years, left my dad when I was 10. But my relationship with my dad was the same as ever until I was 12 and my dad met his now wife. This woman has 2 kids, one older and one younger than me. They moved into my dad's apartment after only 2 weeks. My room was already small, but my tiny mattress and 3 small plastic drawers were shoved into the corner of the room to make space for the daughter's bunk bed and dresser. Before I knew it, they started putting my bed in a closet until I came to visit, and often would forget to take it out at all. When my dad moved into a bigger house, the older sister got her own room, while I had to share one with the younger sister every weekend. The 3 small drawers I had were soon just 1 drawer because the little sister wanted the other 2 for her toys. Slowly, I started visiting my dad less and less. Then everything went especially wrong when my dad got his girlfriend pregnant. After 1 year, they got married, and I didn't know that for a whole month because he didn't even tell me. I also didn't know my baby half-sister was born until weeks after she came home from the hospital. To make his new family happy, he started spoiling them and stopped paying child support for me and my mom. His wife is a jobless gold digger who only cooks, cleans, and shops. Her older daughter is having her college paid for by my dad, and the younger daughter is the definition of a 10-year-old Sephora kid. As for my half-sister, she is still a toddler but is clearly spoiled and hates the word no. The routine I used to have with my dad is now dead. As for my stepdad, he's been with my mom since I was 5. Apparently, though I don't remember it, I once called him dad, and because of that, my dad told me I shouldn't love the man like a dad because he's not really my father. Apparently, that's why I started acting like I hated my stepdad. I never knew why I felt that way about him since he'd never been anything but good to me. In the last few years, I felt much closer to him. He feels like the dad that my birth father should try to be. Over time, my dad has started to treat me differently. He rants to me about his political beliefs and conspiracy theories about aliens and stuff. He also brags about his new business and his new family, and if I ever try to share anything with him, he gets annoyed and shuts me up before continuing with his stories. It's like now he sees me as a buddy rather than his freaking daughter. Also, it was during these last few years that I learned the reason he and my mom divorced was not because they weren't right for each other, but rather because my father cheated on my mom while visiting his family in Canada. I am now 15, and I have become a completely different person than the one my birth dad remembers. I no longer love the beach or soccer, and I now love music and reading and writing. I have written and published 2 books since 2022, and I'm writing the 3rd in my series. My stepdad supports my dreams and loves me so much that he brags about me to friends and family and calls me his daughter. My stepdad has an actual daughter who I love like a real sister, but she lives up north with her boyfriend, and I don't see her often. Still, though, I love them more than I love my birth dad and half-sister, who I'm actually related to. My dad blames me for never calling, though, because of how he's treated me lately. I don't feel like I owe it to him. I also go months at a time without visiting him now because I no longer feel comfortable at that house, especially since the bed I sleep on over there is literally considered as their guest bed. In my birth dad's house, I am a guest. Because of all of this, I resent my dad. I haven't told anyone about this, so no one is calling me a jerk, but I'm wondering if I am, because my dad is in love with his new family, and I'm wondering if it's a bad thing I'm not happy for him. Am I the jerk? Date 1. Hello, so I made a post a few months ago talking about how my dad has basically stopped treating me like his daughter now that he has a new family. Not much has happened since, but here's an update anyway. So, since I made the initial post, I've only visited my dad's house once, and safe to say I truly am nothing more than an uncomfortable guest in that house. I should start off by saying that every time I spend a few months without going to his house, my dad tries to play all innocent and calls me on Fridays to ask when he should pick me up. I never answer because he always calls me when I'm in a class or busy with studying, so he'll call my mom. But because he never asks me in advance, I tend to have plans on weekends with my cousins, friends, or just to work on writing since I am still working on my 3rd book, and it takes a lot of focus that I can't get in his house. Actually, I'm now just going to call him Eric. He's honestly not been as much of a dad figure to me as my stepdad has. Anyway, it was my mom who had decided I would go over to his house, despite the fact that Eric hasn't paid child support in over 2 years now, and I hate going to his house. My mom says I should just visit from time to keep him from getting the court involved. She confuses me sometimes, saying that he's a deadbeat man, but also sometimes saying that he's my loving dad who deserves my respect. However, under the circumstances, I'm fairly certain that nothing would be any different since I never visit him and he doesn't pay child support anyway. In fact, once on Christmas, he bought a bunch of new gifts for his family and wrapped them up in everything. But weeks before Christmas when I was visiting, he drove to Walmart so his wife could do groceries, and he handed me $200 and said, "Merry Christmas, buy yourself something, and the rest can be child support or whatever." I bought 2 books, but the rest of the money that was supposedly child support was nothing near to the amount he owed. I have told my mom I would be happier if he lost custody of me and my stepdad adopted me. But she thinks that's too extreme and says, "He's still your dad. He deserves your respect and love." Now, about the weekend I visited him. From the minute Eric picked me up, all he talked about was his new family. He talked about the older sister and her boyfriend, the younger sister and the shopping she does, and then my half-sister who can now talk a little bit. I stayed silent the whole time until he asked me a question about my school, and when I answered his question, he got frustrated and went into a conspiracy theory rant. I tuned him out for the rest of the drive after that. The rest of the weekend wasn't any better. The older sister did what she always does when I visit and locked herself in her room, only coming out when I left the house or when I was in the bathroom so she wouldn't have to talk to me. And the younger sister had a friend of hers over, and her friend had her stuff tossed on my bed and was sitting on it because it's the bed she sleeps in when she has sleepovers. Eric's wife did a poor job of hiding how bothered she was by me visiting more than once. She has been completely shocked I was visiting because Eric didn't tell her, so she couldn't disagree. Also, most of the weekend consisted of Eric taking me and my half-sister to a playground so she could run around with her friends, and I sat on a bench to read. But I didn't have much time to myself since Eric kept leaving and told me to keep an eye on my half-sister, who is a wild and fussy kid. I am not a babysitter, and while I am good with kids, that does not mean I enjoy putting my own time aside to look after them when they're not my responsibility. I had to spend 2 days in either pure chaos or discomfort. I had a talk with my mom about me not wanting to go over there anymore. She said that's fine and she won't force me to go anymore. But since she said that before, I don't believe her. I don't have anyone to really talk to about this, and this whole situation is stressing me out because I don't remember my dad ever being as happy as he is now, and I still sometimes feel like I should be happy for him. I don't know what to do, and any advice on anything I could do would be helpful. Everyone who's commented on my last post so far has said I'm not the jerk and that Eric isn't acting the way a dad should. But he still reaches out from time to time and says I'm his baby girl who he loves. Honestly, I almost cry whenever he says that because it reminds me of how we used to be. Am I overthinking all of this or overreacting? What should I do? Am I the jerk here because I'm not happy for my dad? You should tell your mom the more she forces you to go to your dad's, the more it's going to ruin your relationship with her as she's not listening to what you want and how you feel. You should also tell her you no longer trust what she says as she has told you before that she will no longer force you into going. But she does it anyway. If you can't talk to your mom, have a one-on-one chat with your stepdad and see if he can help when it comes to your mom. Update 2. Hello everyone. It's only been a couple of days since my last post. Since then, I have taken the advice most of you have given me, and I talked to my mom about how I don't want to keep being forced by her to visit Eric, my sperm donor, as most of you referred to him. Long story short, I'm not 100% sure she won't continue to send me over to Eric's house. But she did wind up sending him long texts chewing him out for not treating me right and telling him to step up and pay his child support. He didn't answer her, though, so I followed some other advice and wrote him a long text myself that detailed how I felt about his treatment of me the last few years. The thing is, as soon as I sent that text, he called me to yell at me and called me spoiled and overdramatic. He said it's my fault we don't have a relationship since I never visit or talk to him anymore, and because I mentioned the unpaid child support, he said that I was only reaching out to him for money. I nearly cried during that phone call and wound up just hanging up on him. He sent some angry texts to my mother as well, but later that day he left a voicemail on my phone saying, "Money is kind of tight for me right now. I'm completely broke. You know I love you, right?" The thing is that I know that's a lie because I'm always seeing my younger stepsister make TikTok videos showing off the Sephora and other expensive crap he buys her all the time. I think I'm done trying. And some of you suggested asking my stepdad for help. I wish I could, but when I asked my mom again if he could adopt me, she said something that absolutely crushed me. Apparently, my stepdad himself said he doesn't feel like he should adopt me. My stepdad is a very kind and sympathetic man, but he's also extremely unconfrontational and thinks it would be like a slap in the face to Eric if he adopted me. Also, because I noticed some confusion about this in the comments on my last update, the reason my parents divorced was because he cheated, but it wasn't with his current wife. My parents split up when I was still basically an infant, and Eric lived in Canada where he jumped from girlfriend to girlfriend there before he moved down here and continued to jump from girlfriend to girlfriend. When I was 12, he met and knocked up his wife, Alejandra, and married her without telling me until a month after their courthouse wedding. Also, some of you asked how old I am. I am 15. It feels ridiculous that I have this stress on me at my age, and I can't really talk to anyone about it. I can't talk to my stepdad because he's always working, and I'm only ever with him when my mom is there too, and I don't like talking to her because she always tells me that I'm too young to really feel how I feel. The last time I tried to discuss my mental health with my mom, I asked her if I could start in a therapy, and she said that therapists are dumb and that I can just talk to her or pray to God if anything is wrong. I'm not super religious, and talking to her about anything serious makes me deeply uncomfortable. It's not that I don't love her since she is my mom, after all, but she's pretty intense and intimidating. My dad has not reached out to me again since his voicemail. Frankly, I don't want to even think about him for a long while now. If he suddenly realizes how badly he's screwed up with me and apologizes, then maybe I'll try to rebuild our relationship. As for my stepdad, he may not want to adopt me, but he still calls me his daughter, never just his stepdaughter, and I truly feel loved by him. I love his parents like they're my own grandparents, and his whole family is so warm and loving. I might make another update if anything else happens, but for now, I'm just going to focus on school and my books. Maybe now that I understand that Eric really doesn't care that much about me anymore, I can finally focus on finishing my third book. I dedicated my first book to him, and I honestly don't regret it. I dedicated that book to the dad he used to be. It's not like he'll ever read that book since he doesn't think it's smart that I want to be a writer, but I don't care. I'm done. Thank you to everyone who gave me advice and told me I wasn't a jerk. Update 3. There were a lot of people asking similar questions, and it was all a bit overwhelming, so I didn't respond to any of them directly, but I will answer those questions here before I get on to the actual reason for this update. So, a lot of you were saying that I should talk to a school counselor or something. The thing is that I do virtual homeschool, and my mom works from home a lot, so I'm honestly just a bit too scared to try that. Plus, even if I did talk to my counselor without my mom being around to hear, I really don't trust any adults to keep these kinds of things to themselves. I know that sounds a bit dumb and paranoid, but it's really just how my brain thinks. A lot of you also said that I should bring up the therapy thing with my mom again, but I know for a fact it won't work. My mom really doesn't believe in therapy and believes that praying to God or having her preach about the Bible to me will solve everything. As for my stepdad, I love the guy like a real father, and I see him as my true dad, even if he doesn't want to adopt me, but he really is no help with the therapy issue either because he always just agrees with whatever my mom says to avoid arguments. But I'm doing fine right now though, and I honestly think things are going to start getting better, and I think this because I'm pretty sure my mom is finally going to file for sole custody and court-ordered child support. One thing I guess I should have made clear is that my parents sorted out their custody and child support agreement amongst themselves when they divorced. The agreement is that I spend weekends with my dad, and he pays my mom $100 per week. I'm pretty sure my dad only stuck to that agreement to keep himself looking good until he could finish his U.S. legalization process since he used to be an immigrant from Canada. Once he was legalized, he stopped paying child support and began spoiling his new fam. Anyway, I went to my dad's house last weekend. This time my mom didn't force me, and I actually decided I wanted to go because I wanted to give my dad one last chance. He picked me up from my mom's house, and we didn't get down the street before we were fighting. I was excitedly telling him about a business idea I had where I can make book boxes and sell books with DIY necklaces and hand-painted bookmarks that match book covers. And he was telling me my idea was stupid and unprofitable and a waste of money and time. It was an hour-long drive to his house, and he was getting political or angry over every little thing I said. When I told him I was thinking about applying to colleges like Harvard or the University of Chicago in the future, he began to yell about all the dangerous Cuban and Mexican immigrants in Chicago and began saying that Harvard is a waste of time since it's just as good as any other college, but rich people go there, which is why it's so famous. I wound up yelling at him that he can't act so high and mighty over non-white immigrants because he was also an immigrant not too long ago. Also, I never understood why it is my dad is always so racist about Hispanic people when my mom and his current wife are both Latinos. He went on one rant after another, and I was so sick of it that instead of staying quiet like always, I actually argued back. Because of that, my dad spent the whole weekend complaining about my bad attitude. I told my mom about all of this. I think the final nail in the coffin that finally pushed her to sole custody was when I told her about a rant my dad went on about the difference between men and women. I wound up memorizing and writing down everything he said and texted it to my mom. I asked her not to talk to him about it, but she was pissed at him. Here are some of the things he said. 99% of women want to latch on to rich men. Nearly all women are greedy and unloyal. Men don't like successful and independent women because they're prideful and bossy. It's more important for a wife to respect her husband than it is for him to respect her. It is wrong for wives to make more than their husbands, and so much more. And then he smiled and said, "But you're the exception, pretty girl." There was so much more that happened just last weekend, like him saying some of my guy friends don't count as real men since some of them are gay, and trying to tell me my summer volunteering opportunity in DR is a bad idea since the people there are different, even though my mom's side of the family comes from there. I won't list every annoying thing he did, and I'm finally done. This was his last chance, and he blew it. I just want to say I'm pretty sure my mom is not sending me over anymore. She spent all morning looking for my birth certificate because she's wondering if she needs it for court. She wants to get me full-time, and if my dad paid child support, at the moment he owes a lot of child support, and having him contribute financially would help me so much with preparing for college. Also, I did not mention the names of my books in the posts. I didn't share them because I didn't want a bunch of internet strangers seeing my social media tags at the back of the book, but I will share the titles with anyone who DMs me. I will probably make another update if anything else happens. Hopefully, my next update will be after we've gone to court. Now for some comments. Comment 1. You are not the jerk. Divorces and parenting are complicated. Your bio dad sounds like a real jerk. He is utterly and completely failing you. I understand why your mom and your stepdad are trying to help you have a relationship with your bio dad. It's one of the things parents are encouraged to do in divorces because most of the time it's better for the kids. And if your parents had a court order that gave your bio dad visitation on the weekends, then she could be in trouble if you didn't go to your dad's. For your stepdad, he can't adopt you unless your bio dad's parental rights are terminated by a court, and if bio dad fights it, it would be a mess. SD's reluctance to pursue the kind of court battle while you are still legally a minor actually makes sense, and I would strongly bet has nothing to do with his feelings for you. He shows his love for you and your place in his heart every day. Comment 2. You don't need him to adopt you for him to be your father. He already is. Please don't let his concerns about the legal mess trying to adopt you would be make you think he loves you any less. I'm glad your mom is going to go for both full custody and child support. Your bio parents needs to be held accountable. Comment 3. I'm so sorry for you that you lost your bio dad. He may still be alive, but the father he was is dead. But you did nothing to cause it. He's just putting all his energy into the woman who I'll say meets his physical needs and leave it at that. It's an unfortunately common problem. Now on to the next story. Story 4. I brought ice cream to surprise my GF, but ended up catching her in bed with another man, and she yelled at me instead of apologizing. I've dated this lovely lady for about 2 years, and she's meant the world to me. We've been two peas in a pod, and I adore her completely. We've always had our week or weekend plans committed because we tend to travel quite a bit, so having these plans cemented is an important detail due to the arrangements I make for an outing. Well, several months ago she canceled on me for a weekend trip. It was sudden and caught me off guard. But life happens. She had decided to go to a party with her friends, no big deal, and I told her I would pick her up at whatever time she called. I wished her a good time and counted on hearing from her at the end of the night. The end of the night comes, and instead of a "come pick up my drunk self," I got, "and I'm going to stay the night with my friend here." I was fine with this and said to rest up and have a nice night. When we finally met up again a week later, something was off. My spider sense was tingling, and she was looking everywhere but at my face while we were having dinner. I asked her if she was feeling okay or if there was something I could help with, and she said no and that she just wants to go home. Something was clearly bothering her. But it was a secret, and nothing I could say or do was going to let that secret out. Over the next several weeks, more plans of ours were canceled and were replaced with her going to her friends to hang out for drinks. I actually tried to invite myself along to one of these excursions, but she insisted that I was going to be bored and to find something else to keep myself occupied. This puts me on full alert. It bothered me quite a bit because this had been happening often lately. I don't know what the next level of having a spider sense tingle is, but I was definitely on that next level. A week or so later, she bails on our plans again for our Saturday. She tells me she's hanging out with her drinking friend at the farmer's market, and maybe she and I can get together later that night. Well, shucks. Takes me 10 minutes to get to the market, and I decide that I should put on my investigation hat and see what's going on. I do not tell her I'm on my way. Upon arrival to the market, I take a look around and I can't find this girl. I look everywhere. I sent her a message saying, "Hey, I happen to be at the market too. Where are you?" My phone blows up with all kinds of questions. Where did you park? What direction are you in? What shop are you by? I gave her the details, and 10 minutes later she's standing in front of me with perfume on. She never wears perfume. I ask where her friends are, as it would be good to say hi, and she tells me that her friends all left to get lunch. My question, dear Reddit, is how do I get to the bottom of this? What do I ask her? Am I imagining things? Or is something up? Am I reading things that aren't there? Update. First off, I want to say thanks to the advice everyone had given. There were a few thoughts that resonated that I appreciate. Secondly, get your popcorn. I know we all like a good story, and this is somewhat therapeutic for me. This all happened a few days ago, and it took me a bit to digest everything. Quite a bit of advice was around direct confrontation and asking her what the heck was going on. After numerous ignored phone calls and text messages, she finally decided to pick up her phone. She apologized and said her phone died and she didn't realize it until it was too late. I started in right away with that she had previously sent me a message nonchalantly that she just wasn't feeling it between us. After that message, we talked, and she said she was just feeling stressed and was taking it out on me. Understandable, stress happens. So my next question was, your friend had told me that you were seeing someone else. What's going on? Do you want to break up? Her answer? What? Who said that? Oh my God, who said that? Oh my gosh. I'm so tired of all these rumors about me. Who said that? She went on like this for quite a while. What struck me was that she was more concerned about someone ratting her out than the accusations. She assured me over and over that no, she did not want to break up, and then started making me feel awful that I would make these statements towards her. Didn't I know how she felt about me? That I was saying this made her feel like I didn't trust her. I suddenly felt like the worst person in the world. She also pleaded with me to give up who it was that said this, but I wasn't budging on that. In the end, she said she was having an emotional, stressful day and just wanted to relax, and we would talk later, maybe over the week again. After taking in the advice from here, I felt like she was misdirecting. I sat there in a mix of feeling like something was amiss and feeling awful that I just accused my beautiful girlfriend of cheating on me. I felt terrible. I sat for a bit feeling like I just put this huge crack in our relationship. I love her to pieces. I needed to go apologize. I hopped in my car and drove the hour to her city and decided to get her a quart of her favorite chocolate ice cream. On my way there, when I stopped into the shop to pick up this treat, I run right smack into her daughter hanging out with her boyfriend. They are both in college, doing night classes, and just got out of school and wanted a treat. We were chit-chatting, and she was going to be staying at her BF's for the night but forgot one of her workbooks and needed to stop at the house real quick to pick it up. After chatting, the daughter's BF took off, and we both drove up to my GF's house. I pulled into the street because they have assigned parking at her unit. Her daughter actually pulled up behind me instead of her own spot, and when we got out I said, "What's up, neighbor? Took your spot again." As we walked up to the door, "No, that's not my neighbor's car." I don't know if it was the way she said it or her sigh afterwards or what, but suddenly it felt like my heart just sank. I knew what we were going to find, but I was hoping for anything but that. Her daughter and I both shuffled through the door and stopped immediately in the entryway. We could just hear them. There's no mistaking it. You know the sound. Rhythmic thumping and moaning with little exclamations of pleasure. The bedroom was right across from us. Her daughter looked at me with her eyes as big as saucers and just goes, "Oh my God. I'm so sorry." At this moment, it felt like I was living outside my body. It's hard to explain, but suddenly it was like I was just a person watching actions happen. I couldn't really feel anything and I didn't know what to do. Here I am, standing here with a quart of ice cream while my GF is getting railed in her bedroom. I had no idea how to proceed. My whole body just felt like I couldn't control it. Her daughter suddenly just screams, "Mom, what the EFF?" That sounded like a cross between a banshee, a whale, and a fire truck siren. My GF actually ran out of the bedroom, bared and all, possibly thinking there was some emergency. Maybe motherly instincts that something bad just happened. I don't know. She started to formulate words but fell silent as soon as she saw the two of us standing there. Eventually, A stream of words fell out of her mouth. "Oh my God. What are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here. What are you doing here?" She kept repeating it over and over until she ran back into the bedroom. I still stood there shocked, still having an out-of-body experience. I don't know how much time passed, seconds or hours, it blurs. She came out clothed in her pajamas and was talking to whoever it was on the other side of the bedroom door. My GFX now started yelling at her daughter and me about why we were in the house. I think the realization of everything was suddenly starting to hit her because she started crying and making unintelligible noises. Her daughter starts to scream at her about how could you do this? And you did it again. At this point, I had seen enough. Couldn't even look at her anymore. Everything was numb, and my ears felt like they were ringing. My body still wasn't my own. I walked over to her kitchen table and put down the ice cream, saying, "I know you get hungry after sex, so here's some ice cream," and walked out the door. She started sobbing, "No," but I just kept walking and drove home. That was a few days ago. I didn't go to work the next day. My phone has been blown up. I have not replied. For your reading pleasure, here are some of my favorite messages. If we had spent more time together, it wouldn't have happened. It doesn't mean anything. You know that I love you. If you cared anything about us or our relationship, you would talk to me. Are you ignoring me? Please. I have lots of pleases. If you cared, we would be able to work this out. It goes on and on. Right now, I still feel kind of numb. I just don't understand how or why this happened. I gave this girl and her family so much, my all, and it didn't even matter. I provided for them when times were tough and did so much to make our lives good. I know I shouldn't feel this way, but I feel like I don't mean anything or that I can't make someone happy. Now it's frustrating. I know I'll get over it in time, but it definitely hurts. I don't understand why or how this could happen. We were so good, too. So many questions I want to ask her, but I'm forcing myself to not have contact with her and just going to move on. In retrospect, I wish I kept the ice cream. Now on to the next story. Story 5. My ex-girlfriend wants me back after making me wait years for sex, only to give it to someone else while we were broken up. A 23-year-old male, I met my ex, a 21-year-old female, 3 years ago. We lived on campus at university, in different halls of residence. After a few months, we got together and, for the most part, had a very happy relationship. There was always one issue, though. My ex grew up in a very religious home. Her father is a pastor. She has been open with her family that she does not share their faith. They weren't happy about it, but accepted that she has to make her own choices on that. Nevertheless, I think some of that religious upbringing was still in her mind. I grew up in a different religion but was never very serious about it, and I'm no longer religious. Our relationship was pretty normal, except that she told me very early that she was a virgin and wanted to stay that way until she was married. It wasn't for religious reasons, as I mentioned. She isn't religious, but she was very focused on not disappointing her dad. We did other sexual things, just not intercourse. I never had much luck with girls growing up, and going into the relationship I was a virgin, and I still am, at least if you classify being a virgin as never having had intercourse. Anyway, I was becoming more resentful of the fact that everyone I know was having normal sexual relationships, and we weren't. I couldn't understand why she didn't want to have a full sexual relationship, though of course I never pressured her about it. I felt that, while I was at university and pretty broke, getting married was something for the future. Last year, I was in my last year of university, and she was working in her first professional job. Her degree was shorter than mine, so she finished university first, despite being younger than me. She was talking a lot about all these successful guys she met at work, which did make me feel lesser, as I was still a broke university student. Coupled with her still not wanting a full sexual relationship, it did make me feel more resentful. We had some arguments about it, and after a while I felt that I should end the relationship as we wanted different things, and our lives were on different paths. It was awful. She was crying a lot, and I felt terrible afterwards. Anyway, it has been nearly 6 months since we broke up. We haven't been in touch at all for most of that time. I have not been involved with anyone else in that time, as I was 100% focused on finishing my degree. I have finally finished university and am about to start my first professional job. She recently got in touch again and asked to meet up. I was hesitant but decided we had so much good history that I should hear her out. She told me she's been missing me terribly these past 6 months, that she thinks she wants to get back together and is open to having a sexual relationship now. I asked her why now, what changed, and she looked uncomfortable. After a little prying, she said she had a short-term fling with one of the older guys at work while we were broken up, which of course was fine as she wasn't my girlfriend anymore. Anyway, she said he persisted with her until she started having sex with him. She ended it with him recently. She was clear that it was consensual, but that the guy was very persistent with pursuing sex with her. I was gutted. I couldn't understand why she'd make me wait all those years, but was fine doing it with some new guy she'd only been seeing a short time. I asked if the reason she was open to having a sexual relationship now is because she wasn't a virgin anymore. She said yes. I asked her to give me some space to process all this. I'm conflicted and would love some advice on this. I have missed her a lot and still have strong feelings for her. But at the same time, it feels like I was strung along for years. It's hard to put my finger on why I don't want to take her back. Everything logically makes sense for us to get back together. I'd even get to finally have a sexual relationship with her. But I feel awful about this whole thing and don't want to ignore those feelings. Update 1. Today I blocked Ellie on everything since we agreed not to be in touch again. That shouldn't matter, but if she doesn't stick to that agreement, for example, if she and Tim split and fight again, then it won't be easy for her to contact me again. I thought it was a petty thing to block someone, but in this case, you've convinced me that it's a way to take control of the situation. With luck, I won't hear from her again, and if I do, like if she knocks on the door, I'll remind her of our agreement and shut her off. Time to stop being passive and take charge of my life. A life Ellie will not be part of. Hello again. I appreciate people taking the time to comment on my last post. The response was a lot more than I expected, with over 2,000 comments. I'm amazed so many people wanted to comment about my situation. Thank you. Warning. This post is long. I have kept a daily journal since I was 16. A lot of what follows is dumps from my journal. Yes, I know I'm not concise. I'm going to refer to my ex as Ellie, not her real name. I'd like to write a bit about the comments because so many people took the time to provide their thoughts, and I appreciate that. The majority of comments were some variation of move on, a clean break, a strong recommendation with a lot to recommend it. A minority said give her a chance and see how it goes. Plenty called me an a-hole for ending it because I wanted sex in our relationship, or for being obsessed with her virginity. That I dumped her because she wouldn't put out. And quite a few saying my breaking up with her made her feel like sex is necessary to keep a guy and that it drove her heartbroken into the next guy's bed. There were a few she's pregnant comments. Not that I know of. It's not impossible, but if that happens, it won't be anything to do with me. The dude saying I should have sex with her and leave her, or worse. Seriously, some of you guys need a hug or a psychologist. No, I would never use her like that, no matter our past. Ellie and I were a loving couple for years. That counts for something, even after we broke up. Feeling hurt doesn't justify using her or anyone else for that matter. As for comments that I have some hang up about taking her virginity, my issue with our relationship was that we weren't having sex, not whether she was a virgin or not. Her being a virgin was her reason for being abstinent, but wasn't directly an issue either way to me. If she hadn't been a virgin and wanted to be abstinent, I would have been in the same situation. The title of my last post was not great, really. I broke up because we were not having sex, not because she was a virgin. Bear in mind, for 3 years, Ellie had everything she wanted from our relationship. Boyfriend, love, affection, loyalty, support, and a guy who respected her wishes to be abstinent. While she got 100% of what she wanted, for me there was a big element missing, and there was no way to reconcile that. Either we were having sex or not having it. Sex requires both to say yes, and that wasn't going to happen. With hindsight, I should have ended the relationship early on when Ellie first told me she wanted to not have sex until marriage. When we got together, I was a naive 19-year-old who had never had a girlfriend before, so I kind of went along with things because I really liked her and got along with her so well. I fell in love with her and then kind of felt stuck in a relationship that wasn't what I wanted. I've learned from this and won't make that mistake in the future. I want to make active, not passive, choices in future relationships, to not just go along with things because that's what the other person wants. Our views about sex and our relationship were not compatible, so I ended the relationship rather than waiting any longer, hoping she'd change her mind. It was scary to take that step, and I put it off for way too long because I didn't want to hurt her, but I couldn't stay in the relationship just for her. I had to also consider myself, too. My mistake was waiting so long to get to that point. I regret that. Has it caused her more hurt than if I'd ended it early on? Many of you say that sex just isn't that important, but for me, it is, at least as part of a relationship. You can disagree, that's fine. Some people are fine being in no-sex relationships. No judgment. For me, but that's not what I want. Some people took issue with me saying I felt she strung me along. On reflection, that's fair. Ellie was clear to me about wanting to not have sex until marriage. I foolishly stayed way too long, hoping she'd change her mind one day. She didn't. That was my mistake. I strung myself along, really. She never led me on in any way. It hurt to learn that she had sex with the next guy relatively quickly after I waited so long. But she is my ex, so that is not my business anymore. She is allowed to change her mind. She can have sex or not with whoever she chooses. I don't get a say in that. My hurt is an emotional response, not a logical one. Logically, I see she did nothing wrong by me. I'll get over it. It's just my bruised ego, if I'm honest with myself, feeling I'm somehow a lesser man because she took that step with the next guy. I know objectively that isn't true, but I sure feel it. I was not a perfect boyfriend, and I have made mistakes. I have learned from them. I don't regret breaking up with Ellie and still think it was the right decision for me. Enough background. A few things have happened. Last weekend was the Australia Day long weekend. I was on a camping trip in the Grampians. For any Aussie reading this, it was so nice to be in nature, to do some bush walks with friends and decompress. It felt good to talk about the Ellie situation with my mates around the campfire. Most of them knew Ellie pretty well from our years together, and they had a range of views just like the commenters on my post. And not the usual good-natured about still being a virgin. I learned there's an expensive bottle of scotch they bought a while ago that's going to have its seal cracked when mine is. Bastards. Lol. One great question a friend asked was whether I would have ever decided to reach out and take Ellie back if she never reached out to me first. The answer is no. It was so obvious to me. That cut through a lot of the confusion for me. I was being too passive in the situation and needed to do what I wanted, not just react to what Ellie wanted. By the time I was on the way home, I had decided to not get back together with her. But that was moot when I was driving home and got a mobile signal again. No mobile network where we had camped. The network delivered a bunch of messages from Ellie, all at once. She said she was wrong to ask me to get back together, and that she's back with Tim, fake name now. She also texted that the thing with Tim is more serious than she told me when she last met with me. She apologized for misleading me about her and Tim's relationship. If you remember, she called it a fling before she asked if we could meet to talk about it. I was not happy, so I just texted back, no. Not very mature of me, but I wasn't in the mood to hear more about all this, and I was surprised and pissed off that she lied to me. That seemed very out of character for her. She tried calling me, but I didn't want to answer. She sent another text saying, Tim and I had a fight. I shouldn't have come to you. And finally, I'm sorry. When I got home, I was an idiot and let my curiosity get the better of me. I looked up Tim online. His real given name is uncommon, so it wasn't hard to find. Found him on LinkedIn, which gave me his full name. Ellie is one of his connections, and he works at the same firm, so I was confident it's him. He's a director at their firm, one level below partner. He also posts on Insta, lots of posts about his adventures around the world at very grand and exotic places, as well as shots with an expensive-looking car. A few photos of him with Ellie with their arms around each other in Singapore in November. I guess that confirms it was serious. He wouldn't have public pics with her for a casual fling. All that just made me feel bad. No good comes from comparing myself to my ex's successful boyfriend. Ellie is not my girlfriend, and I'm not in competition with Tim, so I won't do that again. My ego is bruised enough already. I have been living a very frugal life my whole time at university, aka poor as hell, so I know I can feel inferior when I see people with more. That's another me problem to sort out. Anyway, all that was on Sunday afternoon/evening. On Tuesday evening, Ellie knocked at my door. She said that she knows I didn't want to talk to her, but she felt bad about everything and hoped I would let her explain herself. Clear the air? Then I'd never see her again if that's what I want to do. I let her in. I was not happy with recent events, but figured I might at least get a clearer idea of what's going on. It was a long, heavy conversation, over 4 hours, but here's the gist as I remember it. When we broke up, she was devastated. She said it took a couple of months before she started to feel a bit better. She missed me constantly and wanted to see me the whole time, but when I ended it, we agreed to keep apart and heal. In September, she met Tim at work. He manages a different team. She doesn't work for him. She said he was very charming and attractive and showed almost immediate interest in her. They got to know each other and he asked her out. She was worried it was a rebound but felt so much better getting his attention that she went along with it. After dating for a while, she developed feelings for him, and it later led to a sexual relationship. It wasn't a fling, and she dated him for a while beforehand. I asked about whether he had pressured her into sex. Last time she said he was very persistent. She said she was trying to not upset me. She thought if she gave the impression she was reluctant to have sex with Tim that I wouldn't think as badly of her. So it was a story to try and spare my feelings. I told her it just made me worried she had been assaulted. She looked shocked at that and said, "No way." She was actually the one who initiated their sexual relationship. I said, although I don't like that she lied to me, I can understand why. I don't think she did anything wrong changing her mind about abstinence. Yes, I was hurt when she told me she was having sex, but I have no right to judge her for anything. She's a single adult and it's her life. I don't think badly of her. She burst into tears and said something like, "I thought you must hate me now." I assured her that I didn't. She said she was sad it didn't work for us, but that she never would have dropped her virginity commitment if we had not broken up. After we broke up, she decided that it was a commitment she made to her dad when she was still a kid, and it was messing with the life she wants now. So, by the time she and Tim got into their relationship, she had already decided she was ready for sex with the right person. I asked about her dad, and she just said he doesn't need to know. I asked about why she asked to get back together. Tim is older. She told me he's 32 and has been at the firm 10 years. One day at work, one of the women made a snarky comment to Ellie about being another one of Tim's girls. She did some digging and it turns out Tim has a history. He has dated a long list of women from work. Several of them were young graduate employees just like Ellie. The rumor around the office is that Ellie is just the next girl to get used by him. She was horrified. She accused him of using her. They argued, and she told him it was over. Soon after that, she came to me. She felt as if we might be able to rekindle things now that she was open to a sexual relationship. But my hesitation and time to calm down made her realize it was a mistake. Over the weekend, Tim asked her to work things out. She decided to give it a chance. She tried to call me, but they went to voicemail. I was camping, so she sent those messages instead. So I guess that's settled. I don't want her back, and she's in a relationship, so she doesn't want me back either. We chatted a bit about how our families are going. She congratulated me on finally finishing university. She asked if I had been seeing anyone, and when I told her I'd been studying hard and working a lot since exams. Retail job with no time for girls. She laughed and said, "I'm still a big nerd." She hoped we could be friendly if we ever see each other. But she wants to keep out of contact out of respect for her relationship with Tim. She wants to give it a real chance of working, which is fair enough. She gave me a hug, said, "Thank you for understanding," and left. So there you have it. Ellie involved me in her relationship drama. I would have preferred she hadn't, but at least it's sorted now. I'm glad I paid attention to my feelings and took time out to consider things, as it could have been very messy if I had taken her back. Trusting my gut has been the biggest lesson for me in all this. I still care for her, despite recent events. It seems like she is dealing with a lot of complicated things between her new relationship and work gossip. I wish her well and hope she will be happy, whether it's with Tim or not. She was my first love, and I expect I'll always have warm memories of her. But I am clear now that I don't want her back. She is my past and I want to look forward. Well, this has become an essay. My tutor at university always told me I was too waffly in my writing. Well, EFF those guys. I'm not a student anymore. I can now focus on launching my new career with no distractions. I've worked so hard for so long to get here. My new job starts on Monday. It's going to be so great building actual, real experience in my new profession, not just endless theory. I'll be earning much better money. No more student poverty, and I've got graduation in May to look forward to as well. I'm open to finding someone new, but that is way down my priority list. I'm not going to actively pursue that anytime soon. Cheers everyone for your comments and advice. Oops. Well, we've agreed to stay out of each other's lives. I fully intend to keep to that. I hope she does too. Oops. I was already pretty worked up about things from when she first asked to get back together. I wish she hadn't done that, but after she came to see me on Tuesday, it was easier for me. We got to mutually say no to a future together and also put a lot of baggage in the bin. Is Ellie going to be happy? I don't know. I hope so, but I have my doubts about this Tim dude. But you probably can't trust my judgment on that. More relevant to me is whether I'm going to be happy. The answer is hell yes, because I'm going to make that happen. My old throwaway got blocked, so I had to make this new one. I learned a lot through that experience and believe that I'm a little less naive than I was. Many of you said I would see Ellie, now 22F, again. You were right. If you recall from my previous posts, my ex Ellie and I mutually agreed to be no contact after some drama on her part. At the urging of Redditors, I also blocked her to help maintain no contact. I've been working since February as a graduate engineer, and it's been everything I hoped it would be. I'm meeting amazing, smart people, learning so much every day, and am finally earning a salary after years of being a broke student. Having a little money in the bank and being able to afford to do things like eating out is such a nice change. When I finished uni in November, I moved in with my brother temporarily. He'd just broken up with his ex and needed help with his rent. That's where I was living when Ellie last came to see me. He found a new housemate, and since his place was on the wrong side of the CBD for my job, I moved into a share house in the southeast of Melbourne. The place is a bit run down, but the rent is reasonable by insane Melbourne standards, and there are lots of pubs, bars, and restaurants nearby. The location and my housemates have been great. I'm seeing someone. I'll call her Olivia, not her real name. She's the sister of one of my housemates. We met, one of my housemates and I had a barbecue and she dropped by. We got talking, and we were still talking hours later until everyone else had left. Her brother told us to SDFU so he could get some sleep. Haha. I asked her out that week, and we've been close since. My housemate, her brother, has been making fun of us ever since, including more than a few crude jokes when she stays over. We agreed to be exclusive 6 weeks ago, so it's still quite new. She's so cool and smart and gorgeous. The chemistry was instant and intense from the moment we met. We just click so well. It's such a great time when we're together. Olivia is an accountant at a big firm. One of Olivia's workmates was having a party last month. She asked me to come to meet some of her work friends. We went inside, and Olivia introduced me to the woman who hosted the party, her workmate Jess. There would have been maybe 40 to 50 people there. I didn't know anyone but Olivia. At one point, I offered to grab more drinks. The kitchen was in a separate room. As I was getting them, a guy asked me to pass him a beer from the fridge. I introduced myself, and he said, "Hi, I'm Tim," fake name for my last post. He actually said his unusual name. We chatted a couple of minutes about our jobs and how we know Jess. Then I just said, "Nice to meet you," and returned to the group. I didn't recognize his face as I'd never met him before, but it was definitely Ellie's Tim. His job, firm, and lineup, and he looked in his 30s, a bit older than most people at the party. Neither of us mentioned Ellie when we were talking. Later on, I asked Jess how she knew Tim. She said she used to work at the same firm as Tim, also where Ellie works, but she moved to another employer where Olivia works. Despite living in a city of 5 million, it's still a small world. On the tram ride home, I must have been quiet because Olivia asked what was on my mind. I said that Tim guy at the party was, or maybe still is, my ex's boyfriend. I said I didn't think he knew who I was, or if he did, he didn't say anything that prompted me to share some history about me and Ellie. Olivia was wide-eyed and said, "You never told me you were a virgin." Then she laughed and said, "Well, we took care of that. She asked if I had any feelings for Ellie, and I truthfully said no. I dealt with all that months ago. More recently, there was a formal charity dinner that Olivia was asked to support. Her employer was a sponsor of the event. She was keen to show me off. We were at a table with a bunch of her work colleagues, nice people. One of her work friends was so excited to meet me, and Olivia can't stop talking about me. That made me feel really good. After dinner, a few of us were chatting, and I got a tap on the shoulder. I turned around, and to my surprise, it was Ellie. Tim was with her. It was so weird to see her again. Tim said he remembered meeting me at that party but never made the connection to Ellie until just now. She must have told him about me. Ellie looked very different. She had lost a lot of weight and was very slim. The tight red dress she was wearing made that obvious. Her dad would not approve. Not that she was ever overweight, but I'd never seen her that thin before. She was immaculately made up with what looked to my ignorant eye like expensive jewelry. She changed her hair too, now blonde instead of her natural auburn. She looked like a sleek, rich girl, not the poor pastor's daughter I remember. Don't get me wrong. She looked amazing, but she looked like a different person. I know it was a formal event, so we were all dressed nicely, but this was a major transformation. Despite her glam look, when I saw her, I didn't feel anything for her. Just nothing. Ellie said she was so glad to see me, and she had some news, holding out her hand to show a diamond engagement ring. I know nothing about diamonds, but it looked pretty big and expensive to me. I offered my congratulations to them both. Just then, Olivia walked back over. I introduced her to Ellie and Tim. Olivia put her arm around me, and Ellie's smile seemed to kind of freeze. I didn't really know what else to say, so I just said, "Nice to see you again," and wished them all the best for the wedding. Tim walked off, and Ellie just sort of stood there a moment. It was awkward. Later on, as we were leaving, Ellie was staring at us as we walked out. Olivia said later that, "I think she still has a thing for you." I said it doesn't matter. Anyway, cut to a few days ago. My brother messaged me saying Ellie stopped by looking for me. Yes, Reddit, you were right. He knew to not share my new address with her, so all he said was I'd moved out. Next day, I received an email from an address I hadn't seen before. It was Ellie. No mention that she was breaking our agreement to be no contact. No mention she stopped by my old place. It said, "It was so great to see you again. I've missed you and that girl you were with, as pretty. How serious is it?" And telling me she and Tim have big plans for their wedding next year and she hopes I can come. I was annoyed because she is trying to make her life my business again. Despite promising no contact, even going to the trouble to make a new email address to get around me blocking her. I showed Olivia the email, and she rolled her eyes and asked me to think about why my ex would send me that. Why indeed? Olivia is great at cutting through nonsense and reads people way better than I do. Ellie can't have me back. I'm in a relationship now, plus she's engaged, and it's not like I would go to their wedding. Who goes to their ex's wedding? It wouldn't be right. I don't know why she's trying to contact me, but I can guess that she wants to use me for emotional support again, or maybe things are rocky with Tim. Who knows? Whatever she wants, it's not happening. She has family and friends. She can talk to them. I deleted the email and blocked the address without replying. Ellie promised she'd keep out of contact and just couldn't help herself. I still intend to keep my word, no contact, even if she doesn't. I've also set up a filter to send any email containing her name to the bin. Olivia and I had a talk after that. I asked if she was concerned about the Ellie thing, but she said no. She's not worried. She didn't get serial killer vibes from Ellie. I'm glad none of this has put her off me. So nothing too dramatic, but it does prove you guys were right. Ellie could not contact me, despite promising to do so. I was able to sidestep her much more easily than last time. Ultimately, this is a good news story. Life is so great right now. I've got a cool new girlfriend, a fun place to live, and a new career I love. It has been easy to leave Ellie behind. Now on to the next story. Story 6. Fiancé's family called me a gold digger, so I told them the truth about my fiancé's unemployment. Now they want me to apologize for ruining dinner. My 25-year-old self and my 34-year-old fiancé are currently on the verge of a breakup because he is demanding that I apologize, but I refuse to do so. And here I am on Reddit, looking for some advice. To start with, I met my fiancé, Chris, on Bumble 5 years ago when I was a university student. He seemed quite normal, ambitious, funny, and stylish compared to some of the other guys I had unfortunately met. We decided to meet for morning coffee at Starbucks after 2 weeks of texting each other. I was standing in front of Chris, and we were waiting in line to order our coffees. When my turn came, I asked for a slice of cake along with my coffee, and I watched Chris get visibly annoyed until he noticed that I took out my wallet to pay for my order. After taking our order, we went to get a seat, which is when he started asking if I had ordered the cake, thinking he would pay for me. I shook my head and told him that I never thought that way, and I just don't like having coffee on an empty stomach. He then joked about how I had probably ordered the $2 slice of cake because I was just a student. I found it sounded a bit odd that he was saying these things on our very first date. But next, while making small talk, I asked him about what he was doing for a living, and he started to dramatically say how he was tired of answering these questions since every woman was so focused on what job he had. Then he started to brag about how he came from a family of generational wealth and how his parents had so much money that he never needed to work, but he still worked as a freelance artist. I nodded, listening to him while he continued to rant about how he was so scared to go out on dates since he was afraid of meeting broke women and about how every female just cared about how much money a man makes. According to him, he firmly believed in 50-50 and wanted women to pay their own expenses, regardless of how much they earned. He told me how he wanted to meet a woman who would be happy to sign a prenup before marriage since he didn't want a gold digger wife. Now, some background about me. I initially grew up in a working-class family. My dad was a businessman and my mom was a teacher. When I was in middle school, my dad's business started growing exponentially, and we moved up the social ladder. My parents gave me a very comfortable life, but they also taught me to work hard and find my own path in life. Hence, I had absolutely no interest in finding a rich husband and depending on him for money when I was doing quite well already. So when Chris talked about how he wanted a financially independent woman, I agreed with his statement. I told him how I had the next 5 years of my life planned and how I was already working part-time to pay off my student loans. I had insisted on paying my student loans even though my parents would have happily paid for it because I wanted to do something on my own without their help. I told Chris calmly that what he said about a prenup was extremely important since one day I might inherit my dad's business, and I would not want my partner to benefit from that. Chris looked at me confused and then started asking questions about my background, my family, and my assets. I told him truthfully about my family, which seemed to really excite him. Suddenly, his rhythm changed and he gave me a quick apology, telling me how he had expected that I was just like every other woman from his past. But now that he knows I come from a comfortable life myself, he could be more relaxed. To be fair, Chris does come from an insanely rich family, so I can sympathize with how some people might have tried to use him, which is why he had his guard up when we first met. Even though our first date wasn't that great, our second date went much better. Chris seemed more like himself, and he even offered to pay for our dinner, saying that it was his treat. As we continued to know each other, he started opening up to me more and more about his family. His family only cared about prestige. His parents were extremely rigorous whenever Chris would let them meet any of his girlfriends and would ask questions like, "Where did you go to school? What's your job title? How much do you make? How much is your home?" He told me how he wanted me to meet his parents, but he was scared that they might be rude to me, and because he genuinely liked me, he didn't want to jeopardize what we had. I assured him that I would not take his parents' words to heart. I wish that was true. From the very first meeting, his mother, Donna, absolutely hated me, and she made it very clear to me multiple times. When they asked about my parents' profession and I told them, his dad, Michael, immediately quipped saying that he didn't like businessmen since they were very shifty and couldn't be trusted. His mother nodded and said how she wished Chris would have brought home someone from a more dignified family. This was beyond rude for me to hear, and I was ready to walk away from the dinner right then and there, but Chris squeezed my hand under the table. I looked at him, and he was pleading with me through his expressions to let it go. So I took a deep breath and decided to suffer through dinner. After that meeting, I swore to never meet his parents because I knew I could never sit through another meal with them. My fiancé agreed and, since then, has kept his word and has never invited me to meet them ever again. He regularly spends his weekends either golfing with his dad or having dinner with both his parents. In contrast to his parents, my parents are more chill. They never really cared nor showed any excitement about his wealthy family. My fiancé loves spending time with my family because he says they treat him normally, and he likes that. 2 years passed, and our relationship only grew better and better. On our second anniversary, he decided to propose to me, and I said yes. It was a really happy occasion, and my family was absolutely thrilled. I can't say the same for his family, who bombarded him with messages saying how he better make me sign a prenup, otherwise they would not let him have any inheritance, and how he could do much better. This really upset me, but even then, I decided to let it go. After we got engaged, we decided to move in together since my place was better located. He decided to move in with me. We had already decided that we would split the bill evenly, but just 2 months after he moved in, he lost his job. You see, my fiancé worked as an artist, and after COVID hit, there were not a lot of opportunities for his field of work, apparently. I did not worry a lot since I thought that, with the experience that he had, he would eventually find another job fairly quickly. I encouraged him to apply for as many jobs as possible or even try for other fields, but he never looked out. He had been unemployed for 2 years at this point. I mean, he does get a few weeks' work once in a while, but he always seemed to lose the job because he was never able to submit his work on time. Every time he lost a job, he would get into these overly dramatic and depressive episodes where he would lie on the sofa the whole day playing video games or smoking weed. If I reminded him to find a job again, he would tell me how I should stop trying to act like his mother and that he was recovering from his previous job. This had been an ongoing situation. When I would return home from work, he would often be in the same exact place as when I had left him in the morning. He would contribute half of the rent, but he relied on his family to pay him every month. The rest of the bills, like TV, internet, gas, electricity, and water, were paid by me. Occasionally, he would drive for Lyft to earn extra money, but he didn't earn a lot. The market is oversaturated in our city, so he could be out for hours and yet not get any rides. The uncertainty of having an income from Lyft made me really anxious every day, and I tried to encourage him to get back to finding a full-time job, but he never seemed to listen. Whatever money he would earn from Lyft, he would spend it on weed, gas, and a few specific grocery items that only he liked to consume. He would do absolutely nothing to contribute to our living situation in any way. Through all of this, I've been working full-time while also handling most of the household duties. For many tasks around the house, if I couldn't manage them, I have had to remind and ask him to take care of them. For the past 3 months, I decided to commit to a budget to save more and pay off my student loan debts. I could obviously ask my parents for help, and they would help me in a heartbeat, but I didn't want them to think less of my fiancé. My parents would have definitely asked me to reevaluate my relationship and our future, which I knew they would be right to do, but I loved this guy, or so I thought. I just wanted him to find a job so we could get back to how it was before we got engaged. Naturally, all these factors had become major turnoffs for me in our relationship. We had grown distant, and neither of us took the initiative for intimacy. On my part, it was because my perception of him had changed. It wasn't appealing to return home to a partner snoring on the couch surrounded by empty food packets. I found myself craving a companion who surprised me with dates without expecting me to foot the bill. Someone who could plan vacations, or at the very least, someone with a drive to start their day with purpose. Despite my desire to move on, I was scared of change. I had decided to be engaged with him, and I thought we still had something worth fighting for. Ending this relationship would have meant losing my best friend. I will admit that the fear of being alone also held me back. I would dwell on happy memories, wishing things could be the same and that I could feel the way I did before. I would discuss this with my fiancé multiple times. I would tell him about my growing resentment due to his lack of work ethic while I was working full-time to support our lifestyle. I would emphasize to him the importance of finding a job or contributing more around the house, but each time he would listen and assure me that he would improve, but unfortunately, there was never any change. Recently, my fiancé's cousin, Jackie, got engaged and invited everyone for dinner to celebrate the good news. My fiancé at first didn't want to take me, which I was completely fine with, but his cousin insisted that I had to come. Jackie has always been sweet to me, despite how Chris's parents have treated me, so I begrudgingly agreed to go. During dinner, his parents refused to even acknowledge me, so I didn't say anything to them either. Jackie was excitedly telling me about how happy she was to be getting married to her wonderful man when Chris's mom snorted. After hearing that, we all turned to look at her, and she started to say how Jackie's fiancé had hit the lottery, so he was the lucky one. Jackie looked at her fiancé, embarrassed, who was red in his face. Chris's mom continued to say how people were vultures nowadays and everyone was just trying to take away their money. Chris's dad nodded and asked Jackie if she had signed a prenup, to which Jackie replied that she didn't need one. Jackie's mother, Chris's aunt, then interrupted to say how it was vital for Jackie to get her fiancé to sign a prenup. Otherwise, she would not allow her daughter to get married to anyone. Jackie started yelling at her mother about how she was an adult and her fiancé earned more than her. I sat there quietly watching this drama unfolding before my eyes. Out of nowhere, Chris's mom then turned her attention to us and asked Chris loudly if he had taken care of the prenups with me, and he nodded. It was true that we had both decided to sign a prenup just after we had got engaged. Chris's dad nodded approvingly, saying how Chris could never be careful when it comes to gold diggers and it was better to be safe than sorry. I was taken aback by how rude his words were and looked at Chris for support, but he sat quietly munching his food. I asked him if he wasn't going to say something when I'd been the one supporting him for 2 years. But Chris whispered to me that it wasn't worth fighting with them and that I should keep quiet about him not having a job. I was seething with anger. Chris's mom, who was probably watching us whispering to each other, asked loudly if I had something to say. She looked so smug at that time that I couldn't control myself any longer, and everything just came out like word vomit. This is basically how our conversation went. Me, you know what, Donna? I do have something to say. I have wanted to say this from the first day I met you, but now is as good a time as any. You are the actual gold digger in this family. Chris has told me how you and his dad got pregnant in college and had to get married very early on. Not only have you not had any job in your life, I don't see you do anything around the house, which is also why you are this overweight and lazy. Donna looked white as a sheet while everyone gasped in shock. Without missing a beat, I continued to tell everyone how I had been funding her unemployed son for the past 2 years. I told them how he had no job other than to sit on our sofa and eat the whole day. I joked how he was quickly turning into his mother and that they had nothing to worry about since their own son was the real gold digger. Chris looked at me, pissed. Chris's dad, Michael, asked him if this was all true and if he really was unemployed. Chris was clearly feeling humiliated, but he had no way out and slowly nodded. I then told Michael how he should have taught his son to work for a living instead of depending on their generational wealth because Chris was living off of the hard-earned money I was earning. Donna started asking Chris about why he was not working and how embarrassing it was for them to hear such things about him. I smirked in satisfaction as I watched Chris shift in his seat uncomfortably. Donna then asked me if I had any shame for exposing her son like this in front of everyone. She told me how I had no right talking about her or Chris's father, and that I came from a lesser family, so I should learn to respect them if I wanted to be married to Chris. Michael added how his son didn't have to work if he didn't want to, and that he would support his son if things became worse. They then demanded that I apologize for tarnishing their family's reputation. I looked at them defiantly and refused to apologize, stating that I had nothing to be sorry for. I told them that if they really had so much money, then they should pay me back for the 2 years I had been supporting their son. Their eyes widened in shock when they heard that. Jackie, Chris's cousin, surprisingly supported me. She chimed in saying that it was hypocritical of Chris's parents to accuse others of being gold diggers when their own son was not contributing financially and depending on someone else. We exchanged a glance and chuckled at the irony, which seemed to infuriate Chris even more. As tensions escalated, Chris started shouting at me, accusing me of throwing him under the bus and ruining the family dinner. He told me how I had no right to bring up his unemployment when he was trying his best to find a job. I snorted and told him that sitting on the sofa the whole day was not really how anyone would find a job. He told me that, as his fiancé, I should give him more time. I sighed and calmly responded that I was sick and tired of taking care of him, and that maybe he should consider moving back in with his parents since he clearly needed a mother, not a fiancé. I got up from my seat before his parents could insult me further, took off my engagement ring, and handed it back to Chris. Everyone looked at me shocked, and his parents continued to berate me about how I had no right to insult them, but I had reached my limit. Ignoring their yelling, I left the scene, leaving them to deal with the aftermath of our confrontation. I drove back home and immediately started packing up my things to leave. Chris reached home a few minutes later and started yelling at me about how I had embarrassed him in front of everyone. When he noticed that I was packing, his stance changed, and he immediately began to apologize, saying he was ready to find a job if that is what it would take to be with me. I ignored his pleas and packed whatever I could and left to come to live with my parents. Since the dinner, I have been bombarded with messages and calls from Chris's family demanding that I get back with Chris to save their face in front of others and then apologize to them. Chris has been messaging me as well, urging me to come back and even blackmailing me by saying how he is feeling suicidal after I decided to leave him. I'd left my unemployed ex-fiancé after his family insulted me. Update 1. Thank you everyone for the overwhelming response. I am happy that so many internet strangers agree with the fact that I left my worthless partner behind. I am honestly so done with him and his family. I am never going to apologize to them, and it is ridiculous for them to even expect it when they have always been the ones to insult me. A lot of people have also been asking why I didn't get married to Chris and stayed engaged for all this time. It's because I was in love with him and genuinely thought he would change. I also didn't want our dream wedding without his parents interfering in our planning. Also, I didn't want to get married to an unemployed man, so I waited. Looking back, I am thankful that we didn't get married. Otherwise, I would have had to go through a divorce now, which would have been much more costly and time-consuming. I talked with my parents, and they are furious with me for not breaking off my engagement sooner and coming to them for help. My dad has been joking about how the next guy I date has to go through background verification because, regardless of how rich a man is, it doesn't mean that he would have any class, which is so true when it comes to Chris and his family. The way they treated me for all those years makes my blood boil. My dad also went back to my place and got back the rest of my things while Chris kept begging him to talk to me. My dad gave him an earful about how he was an able-bodied man and should work hard to earn money instead of depending on his fiancée like a leech. This seemed to have really hurt his feelings since my dad has never been rude to him, and my dad told me that Chris burst out crying. He apologized to my dad for how he and his parents have behaved towards me, but my dad told him that it was too late for apologies. I have also talked with Jackie after the incident, and she told me that after I left, Donna and Michael had a literal meltdown. They seemed to be more concerned about their image and societal perceptions than addressing the actual issues within their family. It's quite telling that their reaction is centered around demanding an apology for exposing the truth rather than acknowledging and rectifying the problems at hand. As for Chris, his attempt to emotionally manipulate me by mentioning feeling suicidal was pathetic, but I didn't want to take any chances. I have decided to send an email to his parents asking them to pay me for the 2 years that their son leached off me since they were the ones who offered to do so, and to ask him to stop sending me manipulative messages like that. Hopefully they can check up on him. Update 2. It has been a week since I last updated. Chris has turned up at my parents' place multiple times, drunk and out of his mind. He would drunkenly proclaim his love for me and then tell me how he needed me the most during this time, but I was ungrateful to leave him. The last time he turned up, my dad called the cops on him, and he was arrested for disturbing the peace and trespassing. It was a difficult decision for us to involve the police, but it became necessary for our safety and peace of mind. Obviously, his parents bailed him out, and Chris went right back to sending me hundreds of texts about how much he missed me and how he couldn't live without me. I have not responded to any of Chris's messages or attempts to reach out. It's clear that he is struggling with the consequences of his actions and the reality of the situation. While I empathize with anyone going through a tough time, it doesn't excuse the toxic behavior and emotional manipulation I have endured during our relationship. Secondly, I made up my mind and sent out a detailed email to his parents specifying every time I paid for Chris. It was easy since I maintain a financial planner that helps me keep track of my expenses. Also, because I was the sole earning member between Chris and me, I needed to check where I had to spend my money. I also added my account details to the email. To be honest, I did not want to send this email to them, but some Redditors pointed out to me how this was rightfully my money anyway. I highly doubt that they are going to pay me anything after my outburst, but I want to knowingly challenge them and to let them know exactly how much I spent on their worthless son. For me, it's not just about the financial aspect. It's also about the way they made me feel by judging my family background. I want to make them feel the same by outlining the various financial contributions I have made during Chris's period of unemployment, covering aspects such as bills and other shared expenses. Sending this email was a significant step for me as it also marked my commitment to standing up for myself. Update 3. They responded. I did not expect them to even acknowledge my email, but Michael replied back to me saying how, even though he doesn't forgive me for the outburst, he is concerned about Chris. He wrote how me and Chris should meet for a last time so I could give Chris some sort of closure because he was close to losing his mind. He wrote how Donna and he were extremely concerned about him and begged me to talk to their son. He also wrote that he was transferring the money that I had spent on Chris and that he wished me all the best for my future, regardless of whether or not I would choose to stay with their son. I really don't know what to think about this email. I mean, on the one hand, I'm happy that I have successfully recovered my lost money, but I really don't want to speak to Chris. I want them to take care of their son instead of asking me to give him closure. I have already said to Chris everything that I wanted to say, and I don't know if having one more conversation would help him in any way. Has anyone else gone through this with their exes? Is it a good idea for me to talk to Chris again? Update 4. I talked with Chris. I know a lot of people had advised me against talking with him, but I had been feeling really guilty for the past couple of days after his parents sent me that email. It was eating at my brain, and I decided that for the sake of what we had, I would have a last conversation with Chris and give him the closure he needed. I called him up, and he picked up my call immediately. He started to ask if I had finally forgiven him, but I took a deep breath and told him that this wasn't why I was calling. He became quiet as I started to tell him why exactly I had broken up with him. Chris, I've noticed that over the years we've grown apart. The dinner at Jackie's place was just the breaking point, but it made me realize that our relationship had been strained for a while. I've been falling out of love, and it's not fair to either of us to continue like this. I want you to understand that it's not just about that one incident. Your parents have treated me poorly throughout the relationship, and I don't want to marry into a family that doesn't welcome me. Our values and ambitions are different. I'm an ambitious person, and I want to be with someone who shares similar goals and aspirations. It's become clear to me that we're headed in different directions. Hearing this, Chris started to cry and told me how he had no idea that I had felt this way. I felt bad for the guy, honestly. I know it's hard to hear, I replied gently, but I believe it's important for both of us to be honest. I wish you nothing but the best, Chris. I hope you find someone more suited to your desires and goals. It's time for both of us to move on. Chris apologized for everything. Chris, I never meant to hurt you. I appreciate your apology, Chris. Please don't ever come to my place drunk or send me messages since I will be blocking you from today. I think this would be a good thing for both of us. Let's end things on a good note. Goodbye. Chris continued to silently cry but didn't protest back. I ended the call and blocked him immediately. It was honestly heartbreaking to block the man who I thought I would be getting married to. What really broke my heart was when I had to delete his pictures from my gallery because I just couldn't stare at his face any longer. Moving forward, I will continue to focus on myself and surround myself with a support system that values and uplifts me. It's quite evident that I have made the right decision in leaving this toxic situation and family. I plan on staying strong and taking the time I need to heal and rebuild. I deserve to have happiness and a partner who appreciates and contributes to the relationship. I also started applying for jobs in different cities so I can change my city. I have always wanted to live somewhere new, but I never got the chance to since I was with Chris, and he was adamant about living near his parents. Now that I am free, I can live wherever I want. Hopefully, I can get a better job than the one I currently have. I am excited about my future and to see what life has in store for me. Now on to the next story. Story 7. My wife quit her job, cheated on me, and tried to blame me for everything. So I divorced her and did this. Now she wants to come back. I never imagined I'd be sharing my story on Reddit, but here I am. The past year has been a whirlwind of emotions, and I need to get this off my chest. It all began at my elder sister's baby shower. That's where I met Rose, my sister's best friend's distant cousin. She was stunning, with long dark hair and bright green eyes that seemed to light up when she smiled. As we talked, Rose confessed that she'd always had a crush on me. I was taken aback, but flattered. We exchanged numbers that day, and soon after we started texting regularly. Our conversations flowed effortlessly, covering everything from our favorite books to our dreams for the future. After a week of non-stop texting, I finally worked up the courage to ask her out on a date. Our first date was at a quaint coffee shop downtown. I remember being nervous, my palms sweaty as I waited for her to arrive. But the moment she walked in, all my nerves disappeared. She ordered a vanilla latte, and I couldn't help but smile at how adorable she looked with a foam mustache. We talked for hours, losing track of time until the barista politely informed us they were closing. That first date led to many more. We went to art galleries, tried new restaurants, and spent lazy Sundays binge-watching our favorite TV shows. One of my favorite memories from our dating days was a spontaneous road trip we took to the coast. Rose suggested it on a Friday evening, and within an hour we were on the road with nothing but a hastily packed overnight bag. We spent the weekend walking on the beach, trying local seafood, and watching the sunset from a cliff overlooking the ocean. Felt like something out of a movie. Another time, Rose surprised me with tickets to see my favorite band. She wasn't even a fan herself, but wanted to share the experience with me. I was touched by her thoughtfulness and how she went out of her way to make me happy. As the months passed, I found myself falling deeply in love with Rose. She was fun, spontaneous, and seemed to bring out the best in me. After a year of dating filled with moments like these, I knew I wanted to spend the rest of my life with her. I spent weeks planning the perfect proposal. I wanted it to be memorable, something that would show Rose how much she meant to me. I finally decided to propose during a hot air balloon ride at sunrise. I was a bundle of nerves as we ascended into the sky, the world below us bathed in soft golden light. When we reached the perfect height, with the city spread out beneath us like a miniature model, I got down on one knee, as much as one can in a hot air balloon basket, and asked Rose to marry me. Her eyes filled with tears as she said yes, and in that moment I felt like the luckiest man in the world. We got married 6 months later in a small ceremony surrounded by our closest friends and family. Rose looked breathtaking in her white dress, and I couldn't believe that this amazing woman was about to become my wife. As we exchanged vows, I was certain that I had found my happily ever after. However, cracks in our relationship started to show soon after the honeymoon. I've always been conservative with money, planning for the future and hoping for an early retirement. Rose, on the other hand, was a big spender. She'd shop for new clothes every week, insist on eating out at expensive restaurants, and seemed to have a new hobby and all the expensive equipment that came with it every month. At first, I didn't think much of it. I chalked it up to post-wedding excitement and figured things would settle down once we got into the rhythm of married life. But as the weeks turned into months, Rose's spending habits didn't change. If anything, they got worse. Things got more complicated when Rose told me she wanted to quit her job. We were having dinner one night when she casually mentioned that she was thinking about leaving her position at the marketing firm where she worked. I was taken aback. We had discussed our future plans before marriage and both agreed that we'd continue working to build a secure future. I tried to reason with her, explaining how her income was crucial for our financial goals. "But don't you want me to be happy?" she asked, her eyes welling up with tears. I felt like I was being manipulated, but I didn't want to upset her further. I suggested we revisit the conversation in a few months, hoping she might change her mind. But Rose didn't drop the subject. Every few days she'd bring up quitting her job again. She started talking about wanting to try for children, saying she wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. I wasn't ready for kids yet. We had only been married for a few months, and I wanted us to be more financially stable before taking on the responsibility of parenthood. This led to several arguments, with Rose accusing me of not caring about her desires, and me feeling like she was disregarding our mutual plans. The warm, loving relationship we had enjoyed while dating seemed to be slipping away, replaced by tension and resentment. A few months into our marriage, I noticed Rose wasn't going to work some days. First, she said she was taking sick leave. I was concerned and asked if everything was okay, but she assured me it was just a bit of a flu going around the office. However, when I casually mentioned it to one of her coworkers at a party, I was shocked to learn that Rose had quit her job weeks ago. I confronted Rose about it that night. "Why didn't you discuss this with me?" I asked, feeling betrayed and confused. Rose got emotional. "I want a baby," she cried. "I'm at my prime for having children. Why can't you understand that?" I was stunned. Not only had Rose quit her job without telling me, but she was also pushing the baby issue again. I tried to explain that I wasn't against having children. I just wanted us to be in a better financial position first. But Rose wouldn't listen. She accused me of being selfish and not considering her feelings. To make matters worse, Rose's mother started calling me regularly, pressuring me to support Rose's decision. It felt like I was being ganged up on by my own family. Rose's mother would guilt-trip me, saying things like, "Don't you want my daughter to be happy? You're crushing her dream of being a mother." I felt cornered and misunderstood. As if the job situation wasn't stressful enough, I also noticed that Rose's spending had increased dramatically. She joined expensive yoga classes, went on shopping sprees, and seemed to be withdrawing large amounts from our joint account without discussing it with me. One day, I noticed a particularly large withdrawal from our account. When I asked Rose about it, she claimed her mother needed money urgently. I was angry that she hadn't discussed it with me first. It was our joint account, after all. This led to another argument, with Rose accusing me of not trusting her, and me feeling like she was taking advantage of our shared finances. Feeling like I was losing control of our finances, I made a decision that I'm not proud of. I opened a separate account and started saving my money there. To justify the reduced deposits into our joint account, I told Rose that many employees at my company, including me, had received pay cuts due to the company's financial struggles. It was a lie and I felt guilty about it, but I felt like I had no other choice to protect our financial future. Despite these issues, I still loved Rose and wanted to make our marriage work. I suggested we go to couples counseling, but Rose refused, saying we didn't need a stranger telling us how to fix our marriage. I felt helpless and increasingly isolated. Then came the day that shattered my world completely. My close friend, John, whose wife attended the same yoga class as Rose, pulled me aside at a party. He looked uncomfortable and avoided my eyes as he spoke. "I don't know how to tell you this," he said, "but I think Rose is cheating on you with her yoga instructor." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. At first, I didn't want to believe it. Rose, who had pursued me, who had seemed so in love with me, cheating? It seemed impossible. But as John shared more details, the lingering touches, the private sessions after class, the way they looked at each other, a sick feeling grew in my stomach. I didn't confront Rose immediately. Instead, I started paying more attention, noticing things I had overlooked before. The late-night texts she'd quickly hide when I entered the room. The sudden increase in girls' nights out that always seemed to coincide with her yoga instructor's day off. The new lingerie I found in her drawer that she had never worn for me. One night, when Rose was in the shower, I did something I never thought I'd do. I checked her phone. What I found made me feel sick. There were dozens of explicit messages between her and the yoga instructor, dating back months. There were even plans for a weekend getaway, conveniently scheduled for when I was supposed to be on a business trip. I didn't stop there. I accessed her Google Drive and found a folder full of intimate photos and videos of her with the yoga instructor. It was like a knife twisting in my chest. Each image, each video, was another blow to my heart and to the trust one had in our marriage. I spent the next few days in a daze, trying to process what I had discovered. I went through a range of emotions: anger, hurt, disbelief, and a deep, overwhelming sadness. The woman I had loved, the woman I had married, had betrayed me in the worst possible way. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to confront her. I waited until we were both home one evening. Rose was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone with a small smile on her face. I wondered if she was texting him right then. "Rose," I said, my voice shaking slightly, "we need to talk." She looked up, her expression changing from contentment to concern when she saw my face. "What's wrong?" she asked. I took a deep breath. I know about the affair, I said quietly. Rose's face went pale for a moment. She just stared at me, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Then she tried to deny it. What are you talking about? She asked, her voice high and panicky. There's no affair. How could you even think that? But I wasn't going to let her wriggle her way out of this. I told her about the messages I had seen, the photos and videos I had found. With each piece of evidence I mentioned, I saw her crumble a little more. Finally, when I had laid it all out, Rose broke down. She started sobbing, admitting to the affair. But then, to my disbelief, she tried to blame me. It's because you never give me any attention, she cried. You won't let me be a mother. You're always working or worried about money. He made me feel wanted, appreciated. I was beyond angry. I felt betrayed, used, and utterly foolish. All those times I'd been working late to secure our future, she'd been in another man's arms. All those expensive yoga classes I'd paid for, thinking I was supporting her health and happiness, had been facilitating her affair. Get out, I told her, my voice shaking with anger and hurt. Pack your bags and leave now. Rose tried to argue, to explain, to beg for another chance. But I was done listening. I watched in stony silence as she packed her bag, tears streaming down her face. As she reached the door, she turned back one last time. I'm sorry, she whispered. I never meant for this to happen. I didn't respond. I simply closed the door behind her, slid down to the floor, and let my own tears fall. The days that followed were a blur. I called in sick to work, unable to face the world. I alternated between crying and feeling numb. I kept replaying moments from our relationship in my head, wondering if there were signs I had missed, clues that could have prepared me for this betrayal. My family and friends rallied around me. My sister, the one whose baby shower was where I first met Rose, was particularly supportive. She spent hours on the phone with me, letting me vent and cry when I needed to. John and his wife brought over meals and offered to help with anything I needed. As the initial shock wore off, I started to feel angry. Angry at Rose for betraying me. Angry at myself for not seeing it sooner. Angry at the yoga instructor for pursuing a married woman. I wanted to confront him, to punch him in the face, but I knew that wouldn't solve anything. Instead, I channeled my anger into action. I started researching divorce lawyers, determined to protect myself and my assets. I gathered all the evidence I had of Rose's infidelity, knowing it would be crucial in the divorce proceedings. Now, as I sit here typing this, I'm still trying to process everything that's happened. The woman I loved, the future I'd planned, it's all gone. I feel angry, hurt, and incredibly stupid. How did I not see the signs? How could I have been so blind? I don't know what the future holds, but I know one thing for certain. I deserve better than this. I deserve someone who respects me, who shares my values, and who wouldn't betray me like this. If you've read this far, thank you for listening to my story. Any advice or words of support would be greatly appreciated. I'm not sure where to go from here, but I know I need to start picking up the pieces of my life. Update. It's been a week since Rose moved out of our rented house, and what a week it's been. The past 7 days have been a whirlwind of emotions and activities, and I feel like I've aged years in just a week. First, let me talk about the constant barrage of threats I've been receiving from my in-laws. They've been calling me nonstop, leaving angry voicemails, and even sending threatening text messages. At first, they were just demanding that I take Rose back, saying I was overreacting to a small mistake. But as the days passed and it became clear I wasn't going to change my mind, their messages became more aggressive. Rose's father threatened to ruin my career if I didn't reconcile with his daughter. Her mother alternated between guilt-tripping me and hurling insults. Even Rose's siblings got in on the act, sending me long, rambling messages about how I was tearing their family apart. It's been overwhelming, to say the least. There were moments when I considered changing my phone number just to get some peace, but I didn't want to give them the satisfaction of knowing they'd gotten to me. Instead of dwelling on their threats, I've been focusing my energy on preparing a strong legal case against Rose. The day after she left, I started researching divorce lawyers in my area. I wanted someone who specialized in cases involving infidelity, someone who would fight for my rights and ensure I didn't get taken advantage of in the divorce proceedings. After a few consultations, I found a lawyer I felt comfortable with. Her name is Sarah, and she has a reputation for being a tough, no-nonsense attorney. When I told her my story and showed her the evidence I had gathered, she assured me we had a strong case. We've been working tirelessly to gather all the evidence and build a solid case. Sarah advised me to keep a record of all the harassing messages from Rose's family, as they could potentially be used to file a restraining order if necessary. She also helped me secure my financial accounts and advised me on how to handle shared assets. Yesterday, we officially filed for divorce, citing infidelity charges against Rose. It felt surreal signing those papers, seeing our names typed out in cold, legal language, but it also felt like a step forward, a way of taking control of the situation. The divorce proceedings moved faster than I expected. Maybe it was because the evidence was so clear-cut, or maybe Rose didn't put up much of a fight. Either way, the judge ruled in my favor. The divorce was granted, and, as Sarah had predicted, I didn't have to pay a cent in alimony to Rose. When the judge announced his decision, I felt a mix of emotions. Relief that it was over, sadness that my marriage had come to this, and a strange sense of emptiness. I had been so focused on getting through the divorce that I hadn't really thought about what would come after. You'd think that would be the end of it, right? Unfortunately, my in-laws didn't see it that way. Even after I won the case, they continued to harass me over the phone. They called me every name in the book, accused me of ruining their daughter's life, and threatened to make my life miserable. I tried to reason with them at first, explaining that it was Rose who had cheated, not me, but they wouldn't listen. They were convinced that I was the villain in this story. Rose's mother even showed up at my workplace one day, causing a scene in the lobby until security escorted her out. Eventually, I realized that there was no point in trying to change their minds. They were going to believe what they wanted to believe regardless of the facts. So I made the decision to block all of their numbers. It was a relief when the constant barrage of calls and messages finally stopped. Throughout this whole ordeal, my family has been my rock. They supported me from the moment I told them about Rose's infidelity. My sister, the one whose baby shower was where I first met Rose, was particularly supportive. She spent hours on the phone with me, letting me vent and cry when I needed to. She even offered to let me stay with her for a while if I needed a change of scenery. My friends have been great, too. John and his wife, who initially informed me about Rose's affair, have been incredibly supportive. They've invited me over for dinner multiple times, making sure I'm not isolating myself. Other friends have stepped up, too, offering to help me move, listening to me when I need to talk, and even setting me up with some casual dates to help me get back out there. Though I'm not sure I'm ready for that yet. As the months passed, I slowly started to heal. I threw myself into my work, earning praise from my boss for my increased productivity. I picked up some new hobbies to keep myself busy. I started going to the gym regularly, finding that physical exercise helped clear my mind and improve my mood. I even started taking a cooking class, something I'd always wanted to do but never had the time for when I was married. Perhaps most importantly, I started going to therapy to process everything that had happened. My therapist has been helping me work through my feelings of betrayal and anger, and teaching me how to trust again. It's been a slow process, but I can feel myself getting stronger and more confident with each session. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I made a big decision. I had been saving up for years, originally planning to buy a house for Rose and me to start our family in. Now, I decided to use that money to buy a house just for myself. It felt like a big step forward, a way of reclaiming my life and my future. The day I got the keys to my new house, I felt a sense of pride and accomplishment I hadn't felt in a long time. It wasn't a huge place, but it was mine. I spent weeks painting and decorating, turning it into a space that reflected who I am now. I decided to throw a small housewarming party to celebrate. As I was showing my family and friends around, I mentioned offhandedly that I had originally intended to buy this house for Rose and me. It was a bittersweet moment, acknowledging how much my life had changed, but also realizing how far I'd come. I didn't think much of that comment at the time, but apparently word got back to Rose. A few days after the party, I received a call from an unknown number. When I answered, I was shocked to hear Rose's voice on the other end. She started crying almost immediately, telling me how much she missed me and how sorry she was for everything she had done. She begged me to give her another chance, saying she had made a terrible mistake and that she still loved me. I listened in silence, feeling a mix of emotions. Part of me was angry that she had the audacity to call me after everything she had done. Another part felt a twinge of the old feelings I had for her, but mostly I felt pity. Pity for the woman who had thrown away our marriage for a fling with a yoga instructor. When she finally paused for breath, I spoke. I told her that I had given her plenty of chances during our marriage. I reminded her of how I had supported her, tried to build a future with her, only to have her betray me in the worst way possible. I told her about the pain I had gone through, the therapy sessions, the sleepless nights. I'm not going to lie, it wasn't easy to say what I said next, but I knew it was necessary. I told Rose not to contact me again. I told her that we were over, not just as a couple but in every way. I wished her well, but made it clear that she was no longer a part of my life. Before she could respond, I ended the call and blocked the number. It felt like closing the final chapter on that part of my life. As I sit in my new house, writing this update, I feel a sense of peace I haven't felt in a long time. The past year has been incredibly difficult, but I've come out stronger on the other side. I'm proud of myself for standing up for what I believe in, for not letting Rose or her family bully me into submission. I've learned a lot about myself through this process. I've learned that I'm stronger than I ever thought possible. I've learned the importance of self-respect and setting boundaries, and I've learned that it's okay to put myself first. I don't know what the future holds, but for the first time in a long time, I'm excited to find out. I'm focusing on myself, my career, and my happiness. And who knows, maybe someday I'll meet someone who shares my values and dreams. But for now, I'm content being on my own, healing and growing. To anyone out there going through something similar, I want you to know that it does get better. It's not easy, and there will be days when you feel like you can't go on, but you can, and you will. Surround yourself with people who support you. Seek professional help if you need it, and most importantly, be kind to yourself. Thank you to everyone who read my original post and offered support and advice. Your kind words meant more to me than you could know. Here's to new beginnings and brighter tomorrows. We have reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us your thoughts about the stories in the comments section. Thank you and see you in the next video.